Chapter 25. Silda's question was the same as everyone else's. Fengwu spoke in a serious tone. It did not seem like she was just guessing. Fengwu did not say anything. Her master had told her not to tell anyone that she could understand animals and plants. Those people would be afraid of her. So Fengwu only bit her lip and did not say anything. Fengwu's sullen expression made Silda feel a little awkward. He did not do anything to her, did he? Why did he feel like he was a bad guy who bullied a little girl? Since Fengwu said that this is the way out, let's try it. We don't have any leads anyway. Pelder quickly made a decision. The others did not have any objections. They did not know which way to go anyway. They would just take a random path and try their luck. The 11 of them followed Fengwu's directions, but after 2 days of walking, they still did not leave the forest. Eve was the first to cry out, "Is this the right way? Why can't we get out after walking for so long? I think we're going the wrong way. This forest is so big. It might take some time to get out." Don't worry. Although Zicheng did not know the right direction, he could feel that they were walking on the right path. Yeah, I don't think we should give up so early. The forest is so big. We can't walk out in a day or two. Eve, you're too impatient. Irene looked at the forest. She felt that if they continued walking, they would be able to get out. She could not let Eve ruin it. But what if this path is wrong? Wouldn't that be a waste of time? Marissa wasn't too sure. Let's walk for another day. If we really can't get out, we'll think of another way, Hanses said after a moment of silence. I think so too. Amon agreed with Hans. Kyle Gannard, what do you think? Pelder asked the other 2 male members. Let's walk for another day. I feel like we're almost out of the forest. Kyle and Gannard exchanged glances, agreeing to walk for another day. What about you, Silda? Melissa asked Silda, the only female member who didn't say anything. Since everyone thinks that this is the right path, let's continue walking. I think what Zicheng and Irene said is very reasonable. This forest is so big that it would take us at least a few days to get out. We've only been walking for 2 days. It's still too early to say that we've taken the wrong path, Silda said in a more pertinent manner. Why are you all siding with that Fengwu? You believe her just because she says it's the right path? I even said it's the wrong path. Look at her, she keeps a straight face all day long and doesn't say anything. She answers every question we ask her. I don't know if there's something wrong with her brain. How can you believe the words of such a person? Eve's father was the president of a chamber of commerce. She was pampered since she was young. Ever since she tried to talk to Fengwu but didn't get much response, she had been dissatisfied with Fengwu. After walking for 2 days without getting out of the forest, the dissatisfaction in her heart completely exploded. Fengwu pursed her lips and lowered her head. She didn't refute Eve's words. Fengwu wasn't angry. When she went down the mountain with her master, the children at the foot of the mountain would also say some unpleasant things. Her master told her that it didn't matter what others said. Those who didn't like her, she should just ignore them. If they crossed the line, she could also teach them a lesson. She shouldn't feel bad because of some unimportant people. Fengwu had always been an obedient child. She listened to her master's words. Therefore, she didn't care about those children who said bad things about her. If a child threw small stones at her, she would use her internal energy to make the stones bounce back, and let those bad children suffer the consequences of their own actions. After those children were hit by the stones they threw a few times, they didn't dare to find trouble with Fengwu anymore. Of course, there were still some who said bad things about her. Fengwu didn't care about Eve's words, but others didn't think so. When they saw Fengwu lowering her head and not saying anything, they looked even more pitiful. Eve, you've gone too far. Fengwu didn't do anything to you. Why are you talking about her like that? Silda was a girl with a relatively straightforward personality. She couldn't stand this kind of bullying the most. She was the first to stand up and reprimand Eve. What did I say? Can't I speak the truth? It's not like I'm the only one who thinks so. Clearly many of you think so too. Why don't you admit it? Eve looked at Silda with disdain. Because of her good family background, Eve had seen many two-faced people around her. Therefore, she especially hated people who didn't mean what they said. She felt that Fengwu's personality wasn't likable. She was afraid that everyone didn't like her in their hearts. They clearly didn't like her, but they didn't say it out loud. How hypocritical. Many people think so. Tell me, who do you think? Call them out for me to see. Silda laughed in anger. This Eve was simply ridiculous. Marisa, tell me. Do you also dislike Fengwu? Little Chung, you also think that Fengwu is very annoying, right? In Eve's eyes, Marisa, who spoke up for her, and Zicheng, who saved her, were naturally on her side. When she was arguing with Silda, she didn't hesitate to drag them down with her. Marisa didn't think that the fire would burn her. She uneasily tugged at the corner of her clothes. Marisa's family background was very ordinary. Her father was just an ordinary hunter. If it weren't for her talent, which allowed her to become a student of a magic and force academy and free tuition, she might have been like an ordinary village girl who got married and had children once she reached a certain age. Marisa cherished this opportunity to apply for the Notre Dame du Starlight. She didn't want to make enemies with anyone. However, the current situation was beyond her control. Marisa was a little angry at Eve for dragging her down with her. Eve, I don't dislike anyone. What I said just now is only my guess. It doesn't mean that I dislike Fengwu. Marisa was speaking the truth. She really didn't dislike Fengwu. Besides, there was another reason why Marisa said that. She was a swordswoman. Even if she entered the Notre Dame du Starlight in the future, she would still be a member of the swordsmanship department. She wouldn't have much interaction with Eve from the magic department. Fengwu was also a swordswoman like her. If she sided with Eve at this time, others would think that she was siding with someone from the magic department. She didn't want that to happen before she even entered the academy. Marisa's denial angered Eve. How can you say that? You clearly don't like her either. Why don't you say it out loud? What are you afraid of? Marisa was so useless that she didn't even dare to say what she was thinking. That's enough, Eve. We're all on the same team. Can you stop arguing? Zicheng frowned. She felt helpless. She didn't think that Eve, who always acted like a cute little girl in front of her, would be so unreasonable. Irene sneered inwardly. She didn't even think of trying to persuade Marisa. That author had really beautified Eve's character. Chapter 26. In the novel, Eve was discovered by someone she regarded as her best friend behind her back when she was young. Ever since then, Eve hated people who pretended in front of her. In the novel, Eve was someone who hated pretending. When the author described Eve's character, she always said that she dared to love and hate, and that she was pure and without pretense. In fact, after interacting with Eve, Irene felt that she was a very contradictory person. She didn't like people trying to curry favor with her, but she also didn't like people acting like they didn't care about her. In short, Eve gave Irene the feeling that she was a lunatic. She wanted to feel the truth, but she was only willing to accept the truth that she believed to be the truth. Irene really didn't know how such a person managed to catch the eyes of the female lead. Little Chung, even you won't help me, right? I thought Little Chung and I were good friends. Eve looked at Zicheng with red eyes, her eyes filled with the pain of being betrayed by her best friend. Eve really treated Zicheng as a good friend. When Zicheng saved her, the two of them didn't know each other. Eve valued this kind of life-saving grace more than anything else. She felt that Zicheng was a kind girl, which was why she helped her when they didn't know each other at the time. She didn't expect that Zicheng, who she thought of as a good friend, wouldn't stand on her side. This was something that Eve couldn't accept. Zicheng felt a headache coming on. She had always thought that Eve was a cute little sister, and she had taken care of her along the way. Only now did she realize that she didn't know enough about this girl. Eve, what do you want me to help you with? Help you fight with everyone? The most important thing right now is to think of a way to complete the exam, not fight among ourselves. Zicheng was trying her best to persuade her. After all, Eve was the first person who expressed kindness to her. In Zicheng's heart, she still cared a lot about Eve as a friend. In any case, you just won't help me. After Eve finished speaking, she turned around and ran away, tears streaming down her face. Eve felt very wronged. She clearly wanted to persuade everyone to change their route for the sake of everyone. Why did everyone choose to believe that Fengwu? What was so good about that Fengwu? Eve! Zicheng shouted behind Eve. Eve ignored him and continued running forward. Is she crazy? Why is she running around in a place like this? Does she want to die? Silda felt that he was really drunk. This Eve was really a young lady who couldn't bear to be wronged. It was clearly a small matter, but she could make it seem like the whole world had betrayed her. What do we do now? Are you going to chase after her? Hanses asked hesitantly. Although they were in the same party, this was only a temporary party. Their main goal was to leave the forest and go to the neutral city. Who would have so much time to look for an insensible young lady? Zicheng, do you want to go look for her? Eve will be fine like this, right? Irene walked to Zicheng's side and asked, pretending to be concerned. Zicheng was also very hesitant. Should he go look for Eve? She had to pass this exam. He couldn't let anything affect her results. However, Eve was her first friend in this world. Eve's safety was also very important. Zicheng didn't know what to do for a moment. Irene sneered. She wanted to see if this exam was more important in the female lead's heart, or if that Eve was more important. But where did this Fengwu come from? She clearly remembered that there was no such person as Fengwu in the novel. No, Fengwu's name sounded very familiar. But she definitely wasn't a main character. Could she be a random passerby? While Irene was pondering over Fengwu's identity, Fengwu kept looking in the direction Eve ran. Don't worry, she'll come back in a moment. Silda thought that Fengwu was worried about Eve and inwardly praised her for being such a kind-hearted girl. Something is coming this way, Fengwu said to Silda in a serious tone as she sensed the information coming from the wind. What is it? Ka was closer to Fengwu. When Fengwu answered Silda, he also heard Fengwu's words. His expression became a little strange. Before Fengwu could answer, an earth-shattering roar of a beast resounded through the world. Help! Xiaocheng, save me! Eve, who had disappeared, indeed came back on her own as Silda said. But this time she didn't come back alone. She was followed by an unknown monster. This monster was fiery red, and its whole body seemed to be surrounded by flames. It was about 3 meters tall and 5 meters long. It looked a bit like a fire crocodile, but a fire crocodile wasn't this tall. At this time, this monster that looked like a fire crocodile was angrily chasing after Eve. No one knew what Eve did to make this monster so angry. Damn it! This is a level 8 mutated fire crocodile. Pelder recognized the monster. This was indeed a fire crocodile, but it had mutated. Originally, a fire crocodile was just an ordinary low-rank monster. But a mutated monster was different. This kind of mutated monster could break the shackles of its own bloodline. Originally, a low-rank monster like a fire crocodile could only grow into a level 5 monster in its lifetime. But because of its mutation, this monster had grown into a level 8 monster. Zicheng was the highest-ranked magician in their group, but he was only a level 5 magician. Irene was a level 4 magician, and the swordmasters were about level 4 or level 5. To be honest, if they wanted to fight in level 8 fire crocodile, it was tantamount to courting death. Roar! The loud roar of the beast sounded again. Eve had already run not far away from them. The fire crocodile directly used flame burst and spat out a large amount of flames from its mouth. The terrifyingly high temperature set the forest on fire. After Pelder shouted and spread out, almost everyone scattered at the same time and was not burned by the flames. Everyone quickly kill this monster. Eve was lucky enough to avoid the fire crocodile's attack. She quickly ran to Zicheng's side and shouted at Pelder and the others in horror. Roar! Give me back my child, despicable human. Give me back my child. Roar! Give me back my child, despicable thief. The fire crocodile spat out flames crazily as if it had gone mad. The forest around Pelder and the others fell into a sea of fire. Some of the weaker animals quickly ran out of this area, afraid that they would be accidentally killed by the king of this area. Look what's going on in front. Some of the nearby teams noticed the soaring flames on Pelder's side and screamed uneasily from time to time. Leave quickly, a monster has gone berserk. Some people guessed what was going on and immediately took their teams around to avoid the fire crocodile. On this side, Pelder and the others were dodging the fire crocodile's attacks. Although they had tried their best to dodge, the fire crocodile's attack power was too strong. In just a few minutes, several people were burned by the intense gunpowder. Chapter 27. Among the injured was Eve, who had attracted the fire beast's attention. What the hell did you do? Why is this fire alligator so angry? Silda shouted at Eve while dodging the fire attack. I didn't do anything, I didn't do anything. Eve cried. God knew that she had never been in such a sorry state since she was young. Her arm was burned, and a part of her beautifully combed hair was also burnt. She looked very miserable. Everyone was very angry at Eve for causing this disaster, but now that they were facing such a powerful magic beast, no one had the extra energy to settle the score with Eve. They could only pray that they could successfully escape from the fire alligator. If they died here, then they would no longer have the chance to join the Notre Dame du Starlight. Fengwu, what are you doing? Quickly dodge, you will die. Silda screamed. Only then did everyone notice that Fengwu did not dodge, but directly rushed towards the crazy fire alligator. Could it be that she wanted to fight the fire alligator alone? Don't joke, that was an 8th rank magic beast. Not only did she not want to run away, but she also wanted to rush towards her own death. Just when everyone thought that the fire alligator would directly spit fire at Fengwu to death, something unexpected happened. The fire alligator actually stopped attacking and roared at Fengwu. This time its voice was very aggrieved, as if it was crying to Fengwu about something. Don't be angry, I will help you. Fengwu touched the fire alligator's long mouth, and her body emitted an aura invisible to the naked eye. This aura calmed the raging fire alligator. Although it still wanted to find the child, it did not attack crazily. You all can come out, everything is fine now. Fengwu calmed the fire alligator and shouted at the people who were hiding. When the others saw that everything was fine, they slowly walked out, and the fire alligator did not attack again. Not bad, Fengwu. Are you a beast tamer? You are actually so powerful. But that's not right. Aren't you a sword master? How can you be a beast tamer? Silda patted Fengwu's shoulder excitedly and asked in puzzlement. Fengwu did not answer his question. Instead, she walked towards Eve, who was protected by Zicheng. Give it to me. His voice was faint, but there was a firmness that could not be refused. Give me what? I don't know what you're talking about. Eve shrieked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. She clutched Zicheng's robe tightly with both hands, looking for comfort. Fengwu, what do you want Eve to take out? Irene looked at Eve strangely and asked. Seemed like her guess was right. This Eve must have done something to make this fire alligator go berserk. Thinking that she was almost implicated by this woman, Irene was very angry. She was indeed a stupid woman. No wonder she died because of her own stupidity. Egg, the fire alligator's egg. The fire alligator's mother said that you stole it when it was out. Fengwu pointed at the fire alligator and then looked at Eve unhappily. This person lied and stole the fire alligator's mother's baby. She was a bad person. What? So you took its egg? No wonder this fire alligator went berserk. Silda was so angry that he wanted to give Eve 2 slaps. This woman was brainless. She dared to take anything. Take it out and give it back. If you want to die, don't drag the rest of us down. Kyle, who had a bad temper, naturally spoke in a bad tone when he knew that this disaster was all because of this woman's greed. Eve, take the egg out and give it back to this fire alligator. Pelder was also very angry. If it wasn't for Fengwu, all of them might have been teleported out of the examination room on the second day, thinking that if they failed the examination, they would never be able to enter the Notre Dame du Starlight. No matter how good Pelder's temper was, he couldn't be happy. I already said that I didn't take it. This fire alligator went crazy and chased after me. You all came to target me just because you heard Fengwu's words. What did I do wrong to make you all treat me like a criminal? Eve cried out her grievances. Her dirty body and the injury on her arm made her look very pitiful. Could there be some misunderstanding? Zicheng said hesitantly when he saw Eve crying like this. It didn't seem like she was lying. Yeah, Eve doesn't look like she's lying. We can't completely trust the words of a major monster, can we? Amon said when she saw Eve crying like this. The people who were originally very angry at Eve also hesitated a little. Yes, the opponent was a major monster. They didn't want to believe that their own people would trust a major monster. I don't care if you believe it or not. I believe in Fengwu. Fengwu wouldn't lie, Silder said. He didn't like Eve, but he didn't hate Fengwu. Besides, he trusted his intuition. Fengwu wasn't a girl who would lie. Roar! 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 The fire alligator, who had been listening quietly, seemed to have understood their words. It became very angry and roared a few words with a murderous look in its eyes. Fengwu, hurry up and listen to what it's saying. Melissa was scared and took a few steps back to get as far away from Eve as possible. It's saying that you only have two choices. Either you hand over the egg or you hand over the person. If you don't choose either, then all of you will die with her. Fengwu pointed at Eve and calmly translated for the fire alligator. The people who were originally speaking for Eve all shut up. Even Zicheng didn't continue to speak to protect Eve. Return the baby to its mother. If you don't return it, it will really die. Fengwu kindly persuaded. I don't believe that with so many of us here, we will be afraid of a minor monster. Everyone together we can definitely defeat it. Eve pretended to be calm and tried to persuade everyone to fight the fire alligator with her. However, no one was an idiot. They came here for their own future, not for a person they had only known for a few days. Moreover, she could even be considered an opponent. If you want to fight, then go by yourself. I won't participate. This fire alligator's target is clearly you. Why do you want all of us to fight to the death for you? Who do you think you are? Although Silda's words weren't pleasant to hear, it was what everyone was thinking. You? Eve pointed at Silda in disbelief, then looked at the people who clearly didn't want to fight. Even the people who spoke for her didn't respond to Eve's gaze. Instead, they looked away, avoiding eye contact with Eve. Little Chang, you will definitely help me, right? You will help me, right? Eve grabbed Zicheng's hand as if she was grabbing onto her last life-saving straw. Chapter 28. Zicheng pulled out his hand and looked at Eve with a serious face. Eve, look into my eyes and tell me that you really didn't take the fire alligator's egg. I didn't take it. I really didn't take it. Eve said anxiously. Zicheng shook his head disappointedly. Eve, you took it. Are you still not going to admit it? Eve stammered, unable to say anything. Eve, take out the egg. Otherwise, none of us can save you. Irene looked at Eve expressionlessly. Her time was precious and she didn't want to waste it on this kind of thing. Roar. An earth-shattering roar sounded again. It was obvious that the fire alligator's patience was limited. I'll take it, I'll take it. Eve was scared out of her wits by the fire alligator's roar. In addition, it was obvious that no one in the team would help her. Eve may be capricious, but she wasn't stupid. If she didn't take it out at this time, she believed that these people would abandon her without hesitation. She slowly took out a big fiery red egg from her space belt. She accidentally found this egg when she was running away in anger. When she found this magical beast egg, she thought that it was her chance. Who knew that when she put the egg into her space belt, the fire alligator would appear and chase her all the way back. She thought that with so many people here, they would definitely be able to take down the fire alligator. She didn't expect that these people were all so useless. So many of them couldn't even make a move and could only hide. Now, she even had to take out the mutated fire alligator's egg that she had painstakingly obtained. If she had known, she wouldn't have teamed up with this group of people. They were really useless. After scolding everyone in her heart, Eve felt much better. After the fire alligator got its egg, under Fengwu's persuasion, it didn't bother Eve anymore. After bidding goodbye to Fengwu affectionately, it took the egg and left. After the fire alligator left, Gardner, who was a water mage, used water magic to extinguish the fire. In the end, it did not cause a forest fire. When they were finally safe, everyone found a place to sit down and tend to their wounds. Other than Fengwu, Zicheng, and Irene, the rest of them were more or less injured. The one with the heaviest injuries was Baird. As the team leader, he was very loyal. When a flame was about to hit Marissa, he pushed her away, but he himself was hit by the flame and was heavily injured. Luckily, Irene was a wood magician. The wood element had a strong vitality and could be used for healing. However, Irene alone was not enough. Although the wounds had been treated, it would still take some time for her to fully recover. Leader, I suggest that we expel Eve from our team. If we continue to be in the same team as a troublemaker, selfish and self-reliant person like her, I'm worried that we won't be able to pass the assessment because of her. After Irene treated his wounds, Silda could no longer hold back his words. This time, because of Eve, he suffered an unexpected disaster. Silda's heart had long been filled with resentment. Silda, why are you always picking on me? What did I do wrong? We came here to look for opportunities, didn't we? That's a mutated fire alligator egg. If you saw it, you wouldn't take it. Eve sneered. Originally, Eve did not dare to speak because of the fire alligator's attack. However, this time Silda actually wanted to drive her away. How could Eve tolerate this? If she really let them drive her away this time, how could she face others in the future? When she thought of the possible ridicule, Eve's heart felt like it was being scratched by a cat. What did you do wrong? You actually have the nerve to ask such a question. So many of us were injured because of you. You still don't know what you did wrong? How shameless can you be to make yourself sound so innocent? Seeing Eve's innocent face as if she was the victim, Silda really wanted to slap her face. It's not like I'm the one who injured you. Why are you blaming it all on me? Eve also felt that she had been wronged. A mutated fire alligator egg was gone just like that. She was more heartbroken than anyone else and even had to be scolded by this shrewish woman. The more Eve thought about it, the more pitiful she felt. I'm too lazy to talk to a woman like you. Leader, let's vote. Those who agree that she should stay, raise your hands. If more than half of the people raise their hands and agree that you should stay, then I have nothing to say. If the majority of the people agree that you should leave, then you can scram. Silda could also see that it was impossible to talk to this strange woman. It was better to just vote directly. Wait a minute, Silda. Do we really have to go to this extent? Can you give Eve another chance? I'll look after her. Zicheng looked at Silda with a troubled expression. She had a good relationship with Eve. Although the two of them had not known each other for long, Eve was her first friend after coming to this world. Zicheng did not want to see Eve being driven away by Silda. Little Chung. Looking at the only person who spoke up for her, Zicheng, Eve felt very touched. Sure enough, among these people, Little Chung was the only good person. Alright, Zicheng, you don't have to say anymore. This time, Eve caused us to suffer such heavy losses because of her. She must be responsible for her own mistakes. I agree with Silda. What about you, leader? Irene also did not want to tolerate Eve anymore. She did not know if it was because of her butterfly wings flapping too hard. She did not remember that the assessment this time was so dangerous. No matter what the reason was, the difficulty of the assessment had increased. She did not want to be in the same team as Eve, a ticking time bomb. Silda pondered for a moment. To be honest, he was taught the chivalrous spirit of chivalry since he was young. Expelling a girl was undoubtedly contrary to what he had learned since he was young. However, it was indeed inappropriate for a girl like Eve to stay in their team. Everyone already had a lot of opinions about Eve. If she was allowed to stay, what if something happened to Chingy again? After thinking about it again and again, Silda finally nodded. Alright, let's vote by a show of hands. Those who agree that Eve should stay, raise your hand. After Silda finished speaking, only Zicheng raised his hand. The others either pretended to treat their wounds or pretended not to hear. Everyone expressed the same meaning. They did not want Eve to stay in the team anymore. When Eve saw everyone's reaction, her eyes immediately turned red. Her eyes flashed with hatred. Eve swore that she would take revenge on these ruthless people if she had the chance. The result is obvious. If you don't leave, no one here will welcome you, Silda said with a gloating smile. You'd better remember this. Eve shouted angrily. Eve, stop fooling around. I'll go with you. Zicheng was originally invited to join the team together with Eve. Now that Eve had left, Zicheng did not want to stay alone. After all, in everyone's eyes, he and Eve were together. Chapter 29. Zicheng, there's no need for you to go with her. Hans, who had pretended not to hear Zicheng's words, immediately stood up nervously. That's right. You are you and she is she. We won't hold a grudge against you just because of her. Garnard also tried to persuade him anxiously. It was obvious that the two of them had a good impression of Zicheng. Zicheng gave off the impression of a gentle and considerate girl. Her gaze was gentle at all times, and she gave off the feeling of gentle moonlight. It was very easy for people to have a good impression of her. I'm sorry, but I'm worried about letting Eve go alone. I'll go with her. We can take care of each other. Zicheng gently but firmly rejected the two's persuasion. Little Chung. Eve was so touched that tears welled up in her eyes. After being ignored and treated with hostility by so many of her teammates, Zicheng was still willing to go through thick and thin with her. This made Eve feel both touched and guilty. Eve was just secretly cursing Zicheng in her heart for being disloyal. It turned out that Zicheng treated her so well. She was extremely touched. Zicheng, are you really going to go with her? This girl is a troublemaker. If you go with her, you'll be implicated, okay? Although Silda's words were unpleasant to the ears, it wasn't hard to tell from her tone that she really cared about Zicheng. After all, Zicheng was different from Eve. A gentle and kind girl like Zicheng was loved by everyone. That's right, Zicheng. Don't go. Look at how much everyone likes you. Fengwu, say a few words too. Irene also looked at Zicheng with a worried expression, as if she was really worried about her safety. As for letting Fengwu say a few words, it was completely to provoke Eve. Irene knew that the person Eve hated the most was Fengwu. If she let Fengwu speak now, Eve might make a scene again. Irene couldn't wait for Eve to make more trouble. It would be even better if she implicated Zicheng as well. She had made up her mind to snatch Zicheng's opportunity. Since they couldn't be friends anymore, she naturally wanted to create more trouble for the female lead. When the others heard that Irene let Fengwu say a few words, their gazes became a little strange. What was this Irene doing? She clearly knew that it wasn't suitable for Fengwu to speak at this time, yet she still let Fengwu speak. Did she want Zicheng to stay? Or did she want her to leave? What should I say? Fengwu looked up at Irene in confusion. Did she have to say something? But what should she say? No one taught her. You can say whatever you want? Irene almost wanted to roll her eyes. She really didn't know whether this Fengwu was really an idiot or just pretending to be an idiot. However, for the sake of her plan, Irene resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Say whatever she wanted. But she didn't want to say anything. Fengwu felt even more confused. I don't have anything I want to say. Fengwu honestly said what was on her mind. Was she doing this on purpose? Irene was very suspicious. Even Zicheng was beginning to wonder if he had misjudged Fengwu. He had always thought that Fengwu was a very pure girl, but now she was acting as if she couldn't wait for him to leave with Eve. Could this be her true intention? The others more or less had their suspicions, but when they looked at Fengwu's serious and confused expression, it didn't seem like she was deliberately targeting anyone. Could it be that Fengwu was a girl so pure that she was a little silly? Everyone's thoughts were in sync at this moment. At this time, Melissa also spoke up. Zicheng, you should stay. It's too dangerous for you to leave with Eve. Most importantly, Eve's personality was too good at causing trouble. Melissa also had a good impression of Zicheng. She really didn't want to see such a gentle and beautiful girl get dragged down by an ignorant young miss. Zicheng only smiled faintly and said casually, I'm fine. I've decided to leave with Eve. I think this place isn't far from the forest. We should be able to leave after walking for a while. As long as we leave the forest and be careful, we should be able to reach the neutral city soon. When the others saw that they couldn't persuade Zicheng, they could only helplessly let him leave with the unreliable Eve. Zicheng left with Eve under everyone's gazes. Eve was very obedient this time. She didn't make a big fuss or make a big fuss. She silently followed behind Zicheng. She seemed to have realized that because of her, she had implicated the only good friend in the team. Zicheng is too kind. Why does that Eve care about her? That young miss is so good at implicating others. It's too late to stay away from her. But Zicheng actually left with her. Silda sighed. Yeah, Zicheng is really a good girl. She was clearly implicated and almost couldn't pass the exam, but she still worries about Eve's safety. When Hans thought of Zicheng's kindness, he disliked Eve even more. Although the others didn't say anything, they all felt that Zicheng was a good girl. She and Eve had only known each other for 2 days, but she took care of her so much. There were only 2 people who didn't have any thoughts about Zicheng. One was of course Irene. She was also a transmigrator, and her goal was to defeat the female lead. Naturally, she didn't have any good feelings towards the female lead. As for Fengwu, she didn't understand what had happened at all, so she naturally didn't have any good feelings towards Zicheng. Zicheng, who hadn't walked far with Eve, heard continuous notifications ring in his ears. Eve's favorability towards you increases by 30. Gannard's favorability towards you increases by 20. Silda's favorability towards you increases by 10. Hans' favorability towards you increases by 20. Melissa's favorability towards you increases by 10. Amon's favorability towards you increases by 10. Pellet's favorability towards you increases by 10. Kyle's favorability towards you increases by 10. A series of notifications rang out. Zicheng was quite satisfied with the favorability she had gained this time. This favorability system was Zicheng's golden finger. The favorability of these people towards her would be calculated by the system, and she could use the favorability to exchange for various items in the system. There were legendary magic staffs, holy magic books, talent-enhancing potions, and other things that money couldn't buy in this world. Of course, if she wanted to exchange for legendary magic staffs and holy magic books, the amount of favorability required was very high. Even if she wanted to exchange for them, she didn't have the ability to do so. The reason her innate talent could reach level 12 was because of the help of the talent-enhancing potion. After consuming the talent-enhancing potion, it could randomly increase one's magic innate talent. Her luck was very good. She only took one bottle and her magic innate talent was raised to level 12. Zicheng was very glad that the previous owner of her body was just an invisible person. No one would help her test her innate talent. Otherwise, if her innate talent suddenly increased by so much, it would definitely attract the attention of others. At that time, what awaited her would be a disaster. Chapter 30. She pulled out the system's favorability panel and took a look. Sure enough, everyone's favorability towards her had increased except for two people. One was Irene and the other was Fengwu. Irene gave her a very strange feeling. She clearly didn't do anything to offend her, but their favorability was only a mere 50 points. It wasn't even the minimum level. Fengwu's favorability was even worse. It was only 40 points, even lower than Irene's. What was going on? Was she angry at her because of Eve? But then again, that didn't seem right. Whether it was Fengwu or Irene, they gave her a very strange feeling. Since it was Irene, she was sure that the two didn't know each other before. But from the first time they met, she felt a faint hostility from Irene. Although Irene hid it very well, she still noticed it. Eve, who left with Zicheng, didn't know what Zicheng was thinking. She was still touched that she could meet such a good friend who didn't leave her when she was in trouble. This was a true friend. A day later, Pelt's team finally arrived at the entrance of the forest. Because Zicheng and Eve had left, the entire team was reduced to 9 people. After the 9 of them left the forest, they walked down the only path down the mountain. If they wanted to go to the neutral city, they had to avoid the local natives. The invigilator said that the natives would kill the candidates if they saw them. Fortunately, after exiting the forest, they could see a city surrounded by blue walls not far away. That should be the neutral city. Near the neutral city, there were a few scattered villages. Many locals wearing beast skin clothes could be seen moving about in the villages. After carefully avoiding the locals, the 9 of them finally arrived at the neutral city 2 days later. Because they didn't have any means of transportation, they could only walk. Moreover, even though the neutral city didn't seem too far away, they still had to avoid the locals. Naturally, it would take a lot of time. Fortunately, 2 days later, the 9 of them arrived at the neutral city without any injuries. This neutral city was a city where all the candidates rested and rested. There were many people doing business in the city, but the people living here were very friendly. They weren't like the locals outside the city who killed outsiders on sight. In the neutral city, all fighting was prohibited. Once someone was found to be fighting in the city, they would immediately be disqualified from the exam. Most importantly, these candidates were not allowed to harm the residents of the neutral city. If they dared to attack the residents of the neutral city, they would be immediately chased out of the city and never be allowed to enter again. After seeing everything in the neutral city, Irene felt that this world was indeed very magical. It was simply like an online game and a holographic one at that. Those natives outside the city were monsters, the residents in the city were NPCs, and the neutral city was a safe zone. Looking at it this way, Irene suspected that the person who created this exam venue was also a fellow transmigrator. It was just that this fellow transmigrator was a little too powerful. He could actually create a holographic online game in a magical world. Could it be that this fellow transmigrator had already become a god? Irene didn't know, but her guess was not far from the truth. Thousands of years ago, there was indeed a male transmigrator who came to this world. After he became a god, He used the holographic online game and his memories as a foundation to create this virtual world. He then left this world to the academy that nurtured him, Notre Dame du Starlight. From then on, this virtual world created by that transmigrator became the examination venue of Notre Dame du Starlight. It also became the place where the students of the academy usually trained. These are all digressions, so let's not talk about them for now. Let's get back to the main topic. After Fengwu and the other 9 arrived at the neutral city, the 9 of them separated according to their previous agreement. This was because the Invigilator had said that there was a treasure map in the neutral city. If they were to team up again, it would be difficult to split the treasure. It wouldn't be good for them to find the treasure that belonged to them. After the 9 of them separated, the first thing the Phoenix Queen did was find a bun shop. Fengwu's favorite big meat buns were not brought to this world. Because her space ring wasn't brought to this world. Fengwu had been in this virtual world for 3 days and hadn't eaten a single meat bun. She had been hungry for 3 days and had eaten the prey that the boys had hunted for her. The meat buns in this world were a little more expensive than those in the real world. One of them cost 5 copper coins. Fengwu took out 2 silver coins at once and asked the shopkeeper to fill the meat buns with 2 silver coins each. The currency exchange in this world was the same as in the real world. It was 1,000 copper coins for 1 silver coin, 100 silver coins for 1 gold coin. After packing the 400 big meat buns into her space bag, Fengwu took out a meat bun and happily gnawed on it. The natives passing by saw a cute little girl in a white dress happily gnawing on a big meat bun. They couldn't help but smile. While Fengwu was gnawing on the meat bun, Irene used her experience from reading novels in her previous life to contact the natives on the streets to see if she could find any quests. Irene already treated finding the treasure map as a quest. Since the Invigilator had said that the treasure map was in the neutral city, then the natives must have some clues. What she needed to do now was to help the natives like in the novels and then wait for the rewards. However, things didn't develop as Irene expected. After leaving Fengwu and the others, Irene passed by a flower shop and saw a notice on the door asking for help picking the magic sword orchid. So she tentatively ran into the shop and asked the lady boss if she could go pick it. The lady boss sized up Irene a few times and said that a customer in the shop had ordered a magic sword orchid and wanted to go to a certain mountain to pick it. Erin immediately agreed to the lady boss's request. She ran to the mountain and fought a fierce battle with the magical beasts guarding the flowers. She obtained the flowers that the lady boss wanted. However, the lady boss only gave Erin 5 silver coins as a reward. She didn't provide any clues about the treasure map. Of course, Irene wasn't going to let it go just like that. She directly told the lady boss that she wanted to find the treasure map. But the lady boss said that she didn't know anything. Irene didn't give up and kept pestering the lady boss until she finally angered the lady boss. The lady boss directly splashed a basin of dirty water on Irene. Fortunately, Irene dodged quickly. Otherwise, she would have been drenched in dirty water. Irene angrily turned and left. Although she still wanted to ask the lady boss clearly, the lady boss clearly didn't have a good temper. Irene also didn't want to offend the natives too much, so she could only leave with her tail between her legs. Irene wasn't the only one asking about the treasure map. Of course, there were others. When Irene was chased away by the flower shop owner, Zicheng and Eve came to the neutral city with another party. Chapter 31. After arriving at the neutral city, Zicheng, who also came from Earth, also discovered that this world seemed to be somewhat related to online games. However, Zicheng didn't play games in his previous life. He had only occasionally read 1 or 2 online gaming novels. Although he had only read 2 online gaming novels, Zicheng still had some understanding of how to accept missions in the game. After arriving at the neutral city, Zicheng and Eve bade farewell to the rest of the team. Zicheng originally wanted to search for clues alone, but Eve followed him closely. Zicheng thought of the 95 points of favorability between him and Eve. In order to maintain the favorability, even if he didn't want to let Eve follow him, he could only endure it and search for clues with Eve. The two walked around the city and asked many natives, but they didn't receive any missions. Zicheng couldn't help but wonder if he was wrong. Was this world actually different from online games? Just as he was thinking this, a mission notice suddenly appeared in a nearby shop. It turned out that this was a shop that specialized in making weapons. This time someone had ordered a magic sword from the shop, and this sword required the core of a rank 3 magical beast. The shop posted a notice that they were buying a rank 3 magical beast core, and it had to be a rank 3 Earth-type Great Earth Ape. It was written that as long as someone could hunt down a rank 3 magical beast core, the shop would reward them greatly in addition to the mission fee. Seeing this, Ziqing immediately brought Eve to the shop to accept the mission. At the same time, many shops posted mission notices that required others to help them complete missions. Many clever candidates guessed that if they wanted to find clues to the treasure map, they would have to start with the natives. Thus, many candidates accepted missions from the natives. There were also some who couldn't be bothered to find the treasure map, and were more inclined to take the risk to find the magical item required by the academy. Fengwu, on the other hand, didn't think too much about it. She was busy eating right now. After eating the 10th big meat bun, Fengwu went to some shops to buy water bags and went to the river to fill them with water. He also bought a tent for staying overnight in the wilderness, and a fire crystal for lighting a fire. After everything was prepared, Fengwu found a cheap hotel and booked a room for the night. The first day of entering the city passed peacefully. The next day, Fengwu blinked her big eyes. She was not used to waking up in an unfamiliar bed. It took him 2 seconds to remember that he was taking the entrance exam of the Notre Dame du Starlight. After washing up, Fengwu checked out of the room and left the hotel. What should she do now? Fengwu was a little confused. That teacher seemed to have said that there was a treasure map, but what was a treasure map? Fengwu, who had lived in the mountains since she was a child, naturally had never heard of something like a treasure map. The teacher who had explained the rules didn't expect that there would be someone in this world who was so clueless as to not even know what a treasure map was. Fengwu blinked her big eyes. She suddenly remembered that Ajur had said that there were many books in the library, and that there was a lot of knowledge in the books. Thus the Fengwu girl made a decision. She would go to the library and look for what a treasure map was in the books. This girl didn't think of asking anyone from the beginning. In fact, the reason why Fengwu didn't think of asking anyone was because Ajur had a lot to do with it. Ajur knew that Fengwu's personality was very pure. He was afraid that this girl would be cheated, so before the first exam, Ajur had told Fengwu a lot of things. For example, she couldn't talk to strangers casually, she couldn't listen to strangers casually. There were a lot of things like that. Fengwu might not be good at other things, but she had a very good memory. Therefore, this girl remembered Ajur's words very well, and executed them quite well. Other than the first day when she entered the examination hall and teamed up with Peida and the others, Fengwu did not talk to any other candidates, nor did she have any contact with anyone else. The reason why she teamed up with Peida was because Ajur said that she could temporarily team up with others when necessary. However, not everyone in the same team was a good person, so even if they were in the same team, she had to be vigilant. In short, Ajur wanted to tell this girl everything. Although Fengwu couldn't understand all of it, she knew that Ajur was doing it for her own good, so she took it all down seriously. After deciding to go to the library, Fengwu suddenly remembered that she didn't know the way to the library. She blinked and looked at the people coming and going on the street. At this time, Fengwu finally thought that she could ask someone for directions. After deciding on the direction, the Fengwu girl carefully observed all the pedestrians on the roadside and walked towards a bun shop. When the bun shop owner saw Fengwu, he immediately greeted her with a smile. "Little girl, are you buying buns again?" the boss asked with a smile. The boss was very satisfied with Fengwu's sales ability. If everyone could have such purchasing power, their family would not be far from becoming rich. Fengwu walked to the boss's bun shop and looked at him seriously. "Uncle, do you know how to get to the library?" "Library?" The bun shop owner wiped his chubby hands on his apron and said, "Our neutral city does have a library, but that library charges a silver coin for an hour of reading. Little girl, if you want to read books, you can go to a bookstore. The library is expensive," the fat boss kindly advised. Fengwu thanked the boss for his reminder, but she still insisted on going to the library. Seeing that Fengwu wouldn't listen, the boss could only helplessly call out his youngest son. The boss's youngest son was only 7 years old this year, and was a naughty chubby boy. The boss let his son take Fengwu to the library. The chubby boy and his father bargained and finally agreed to lead the way for Fengwu at the price of a drumstick. The boss originally wanted to beat the kid up, but when Fengwu heard that the chubby boy wanted a drumstick, She took out a drumstick from her space bag and gave it to the chubby boy. Since Fengwu paid for the drumstick herself, the fat boss could not say anything. He could only let his son quickly lead the way. The chubby boy was very satisfied with Fengwu's tactfulness. He happily ran to lead the way for Fengwu. The neutral city's library was very hidden. If it wasn't for the chubby boy leading the way, it would take a lot of luck for a normal person to find it. No one would have thought that the library was built in a basement. The chubby boy led Fengwu through a few small alleys, and then into a very luxurious building. This luxurious building was a shop that sold all kinds of magic staffs and magic swords. The things in the shop were very expensive. The chubby boy naturally couldn't take Fengwu to the shop to buy things. He directly took Fengwu to the back of the shop. There was a basement behind the shop. That was where the library was. Chapter 32. She followed the little fatty down the stairs. At the bottom of the stairs was a large wooden door. She didn't know what kind of wood this door was made of, but it looked very heavy. There were all kinds of magical beasts carved on the door. At the bottom were some low-grade magical beasts, while at the top were legendary sacred beasts. There were over 1,000 types of magical beasts carved on the door, and none of them were the same. Fengwu didn't know much about the magical beasts of Heavenly Wind, so she only felt that these magical beasts looked very powerful. She didn't know that what she was looking at was the legendary sacred beast carvings. On the door there was a sign with the words Neutral City Library carved on it. The words were written in the common language of the continent. Although Fengwu didn't have the original owner's memories, she could understand these words even though she had never learned the language of this continent. We've reached the library. I'll go back first. To thank you for your chicken drumstick, I'll tell you another piece of news. The curator said before that as long as anyone can help him organize the books, he'll pay them to read. It's just that there are many books in this library, and the curator doesn't pay them. He only wants them to read, so no one is willing to take this job. If you're so interested in the books, you can go to the curator for an interview. If the curator keeps you, you'll be able to read for free. The little fatty had a good impression of Fengwu. Because Fengwu didn't bargain at all and gave him a chicken drumstick, the little fatty didn't mind telling Fengwu more about himself. If you want to organize the books here, just tell the curator that Steamed Bun Li Jisheo belongs to me. Steamed Bun Li is my dad. My dad's name is Li, and I'm Jia. Alright big sister, I'll go back first. Dad's still waiting for me to help him look after the shop. The little fatty called Jia didn't wait for Fengwu to reply, and waved the chicken drumstick in his hand as he ran off. The little fatty couldn't bear to eat it the entire way. After sending Fengwu back, he happily went to enjoy the drumstick. After Fatty left, Fengwu stood outside the library and stared at the door for a full 3 minutes before trying to push the door open. The door looked quite heavy, but it wasn't particularly hard to push it open. Although it wasn't to the point where it would open with a gentle push, it didn't take too much effort. The library built in the basement should be cold and damp, but the light in this library was very abundant, and there was sunlight shining in through the window. The library wasn't cold at all. Instead, it had the smell of the sun. As for the humidity characteristic of the basement, it didn't even exist. After Fengwu opened the door and walked into the library, the door closed behind her. The sound of the door closing was not loud, but it was very abrupt in the quiet library. In such an unfamiliar place, the door would close on its own. Anyone would think that there was something wrong with this place and try to escape. However, Fengwu's brain had always been wired differently from ordinary people. After looking back at the closed door, she walked directly to the large desk not far from the door. There was an old man sleeping behind the desk, and he seemed to be in a deep sleep. He didn't even notice that his saliva was dripping from the corner of his mouth onto the cover of the book. Fengwu stood there obediently and watched the old man sleep. She stood there for 3 hours. In a room that Fengwu didn't know about, a water mirror reflected all the candidates participating in the examination. The images in the water mirror kept changing. Sometimes it showed a young man hunting magical beasts in the mountains, sometimes it showed a young girl harvesting herbs, and sometimes it showed a person helping a child remove a kite from a tree. There was also a young girl who had obtained a treasure map and was about to go on a treasure hunt excitedly. At this moment, the image changed to a male swordsman. There wasn't anything special about this swordsman. What was special was that after he helped an old man do something, he didn't get the treasure map he wanted other than some copper coins. Thus, he became angry from embarrassment and raised his sword to threaten the old man. At this time, the city guards of the neutral city appeared. This man didn't have time to make a move before he was captured by the city guards. A notice appeared on all the large signs in the city. A certain candidate threatened the natives and was locked up for 7 days as punishment. It was hoped that all candidates would take this as a warning and not do it again. When the 3 people in front of the water mirror saw this scene, they couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh. Young people these days really can't keep their cool. The one who spoke was one of the 3 invigilators, a swordsman. The swordsman who spoke was one of the 2 male teachers. He looked more stern. The other had a gentle smile on his face. It was obvious that he had a good temper. They are still very young. Back when we participated in this examination, weren't there many situations as well? The smiling teacher seemed to have thought of something. There was a trace of nostalgia on his face. I hope there will be good seedlings in this batch. Many low-level demons have come to the human world through spatial rifts and devour human lives. Among us humans, there are still too few who can fight against the demon race and other races. I really hope there will be another person like Longza Gamer thousands of years ago. The only female teacher among the 3 said with a sigh. Longza Gamer. To all magicians, he was a person who created miracles. 1,000 years ago, he was an ordinary farmer's youth. Moreover, his talent just happened to be at the 7th level. However, through his own efforts, he became the only magician in 1,000 years to become a god. Longza Gamer wasn't just a magician. He was also the only god-level pharmacist in the entire continent. His legend spread across the entire continent. He led the human race to fight against the demon race, against the Shura race, and together with the master of the 3 realms, he established the 3 Realms Treaty and maintained the peace of the human world for thousands of years. In the hearts of all magicians, Longza Gamer was a godlike man. In the end, he really did become a god. Although I also hope that there will be another Longza Gamer. It is too difficult for someone with the same talent as Longza Gamer to appear in this world. The magic continent has been formed for tens of thousands of years, and there has only been one Longza Gamer. Longza Gamer's talent wasn't in magic, but in the production of medicine. Many of the potion formulas that were passed down now were passed down by Longza Gamer. The Tianfeng continent had been formed for many years. In the end, there were only 10 people who could become god-level pharmacists. These 10 people were all influential figures of their time. Of course, the most famous of the 10 was Longza Gamer. While the 3 were talking, the image on the water mirror kept changing. Finally, it stopped on Zicheng and Eve. In the image, Zicheng was buying a lot of food and giving it to the beggars in the alley. Eve was standing aside with a look of indifference. It seems that this girl is not only talented, but also has a good temperament. The female teacher looked at Zicheng in the image and said with admiration, "She is indeed a rare good child. It's just that the girl next to her has a worse temperament." The more serious male teacher frowned. Chapter 33. After all, there are too few children with magical talent in this world. Once a child is found to have magical talent, no matter how talented they are, they will receive special treatment at home. In the long run, even a child with a decent temperament will be spoiled beyond recognition. The male teacher with a gentle smile sighed softly. People in this world were all the same. They would give special treatment to talented children, and spoil them especially. But who knew that it was this kind of spoiling that made it difficult for many children to achieve great things in the end? Instead, it was those children who grew up in ordinary families who had an advantage in the test of temperament. Look at this child. If I remember correctly, this child was the only one who restrained her aura during the first talent test. What is this child doing now? Just now the image moved to her a few times, but I noticed that she was standing there motionlessly. How strange. The only female teacher fixed the image on the black-haired, black-eyed girl. The 3 teachers observed this strange girl together. 3 hours later, the sleeping old man opened his sleepy eyes. As soon as he raised his head, he saw a cute, black-haired girl standing in front of his large desk. A pair of big, curious eyes were staring at him with satisfaction. The old man jumped in fright and almost fell off his chair. After stabilizing his body with great difficulty, the old man immediately pulled out the chair and stood up. Little girl, are you here to read books? Do you know that reading here costs 1 silver coin per hour? The old man wiped the corner of his mouth to hide it. As expected, he touched a suspicious water stain. He wiped the water stain on his mouth, then wiped it on the black magic robe he was wearing. It was the annihilation drama. Fengwu tilted her head. She saw the old man's every move clearly, but she didn't say anything. I'm here to look for a job. I heard that you can read books for free by organizing books here. This child is so direct. The old man's mouth twitched. That's true. But I don't accept just anyone. After saying that, he looked at Fengwu's small body critically. Li introduced me. Fengwu looked at the old man seriously and said, Li? Their buns are really delicious. I haven't eaten them in a long time. The old man licked his lips in nostalgia. Well, for Li's sake, you can stay and help me organize the books. But I won't pay you, so you have to be mentally prepared. The old man stated in advance. I know. I just want to read. Fengwu nodded to show that she understood. Therefore, 3 hours later, Fengwu was successfully detained. After arranging Fengwu's work, the old man continued to sleep with a book in his arms, as if he could never get enough sleep. Fengwu obediently followed the old man's instructions. She took down a pile of books from the bookshelf and arranged them according to the types of books. Half an hour later, Fengwu had just finished half of her work when the library's door was pushed open again. A blue-haired girl pushed open the heavy door and walked in. After the girl entered the library, she curiously looked up and down. As Fengwu was surrounded by a pile of books, the blue-haired girl did not see her. After looking around the library, the blue-haired girl walked to the old man who was sleeping soundly and knocked on the long desk. The old man was not awakened. He smacked his lips and continued to sleep in another position. The blue-haired girl was not discouraged. She continued to knock on the desk. Finally, the old man opened his eyes. Hello. I'm an adventurer from the outside world. I need to find some information. Can I read here for a while? Irene asked politely. The old man looked at Irene indifferently. He wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and said, 1 silver coin for an hour of reading. How many hours do you plan to read for? 2 hours will be enough. If I still haven't found the information I want, I'll add more money. Irene smiled and handed the old man 2 silver coins. Call me if you want to read more when the time is up. After saying that, the old man ignored Irene and went to sleep. After the old man fell asleep on the desk, Irene looked around the library. The library was very big. She did not know if she could find what she was looking for. However, that child would not lie to her. Irene thought of the reason why she came to the library. An hour ago, she helped a child who was lost on the street. After sending the child home, she asked the child's parents about the clues to the treasure map. The parents told her that there were many precious books in the only library in the city. Perhaps there would be the clues she was looking for. After receiving this clue, Irene was overjoyed. She asked for the location of the library. It took her more than 40 minutes to find this mysterious library in the city. Her original plan was to snatch Zicheng's opportunity and make Zicheng lose the chance to find the holy magic book. She knew that the reason Zicheng got the magic book was because she gave food to a group of beggars. An old beggar was grateful for the female lead's kindness, so he took out a treasure map and gave it to her. The magic item hidden in the treasure map was a saint-level magic book. There was only one saint-level spell recorded in the book, but this spell was very powerful. It was left behind by the powerful Longzi Gamer thousands of years ago. Because Zicheng got the treasure left behind by Longzi Gamer, he was especially valued by the academy. His importance was only below that of the 8 people. Thinking of those 8 people, Irene's eyes became more determined. Those 8 people were the chosen masters of the 8 great divine artifacts. The masters of the 8 great divine artifacts, each of them had the power to destroy heaven and earth. They also bore the heavy responsibility of protecting the peace of the continent. They were valued by the Holy Temple. In the book, these 8 people were also very powerful. However, 3 of the 8 people died fighting for Zicheng. Other than 2 people who did not have any contact with Zicheng, the others were on good terms with Zicheng. They also took care of her. Irene shook her head. shaking off the messy thoughts in her mind. Now was not the time to think about these things. Her thoughts went back to an hour ago. An hour ago, she wanted to find the group of beggars before Zicheng, but she was still one step too late. The group of beggars appeared at random times. She went around the area a few times and did not find any beggars. However, the female lead found them as soon as she went there. Although she was not convinced by the female lead's good luck, the matter was already settled. She did not have the time to complain. What she needed to do now was to find the other magic item as soon as possible. Fortunately, her luck was not bad. Before she found the group of beggars, she sent a little boy home. From the little boy's parents, she found out that there was such a library in this city. The little boy's parents told her that there were many precious books in the library. There might be clues in those books that she was looking for. Chapter 34. Thus, after Irene asked how to get to the library, she spent a lot of time finding the library. However, there were too many books in the library. How was she going to find the clues she wanted? Irene thought for a long time and decided to look at the books about local customs and geography. With her experience playing online games, the most important clues would not be recorded in the important books. Instead, it was easier to find clues in the books that were not usually valued. After finding the book she wanted from the bookshelf, Erin hugged a few thick books and sat down at a random table. She started reading quietly. Fengwu only blinked her big eyes and looked at Irene before she focused on doing her own things. Irene sat there and read for more than an hour. When she was tired and stretched, she looked up and found Fengwu not far away, who was standing on a ladder and organizing the books. Irene was shocked. After being stunned for a few seconds, she walked to Fengwu. "Fengwu, why are you here?" Fengwu lowered her head and saw Irene looking at her with a shocked expression. "I've been here for almost 2 hours." Fengwu answered seriously. After answering, she wiped the books in her hands and put them back on the shelf. "Then you're here earlier than me." Irene was shocked. She did not expect that there was someone else in the library other than her. This Fengwu had been here for so long and did not make a sound. Moreover, she did not pay attention to her. What was she trying to do? Unable to guess Fengwu's intentions, Irene could only guard against Fengwu in her heart. "Yes, I'm here earlier than you." Fengwu nodded honestly. Did she have to be so honest? She did not know how to continue the conversation. Irene could not help but frown. "Why didn't you call me? Neutral City is so big and we still met. It must be fate." Irene said with a smile. "Why did I have to call you?" Fengwu stopped wiping the books and looked down at Irene. Why did I have to call her? What kind of question was this? Was this girl really not doing it on purpose? Irene suspected that this Fengwu was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. However, looking at the girl's serious expression and eyes, it did not seem like she was pretending. If she was, then her acting skills could win a few Oscars. Haha. Irene laughed and did not answer the question directly. She looked at the ladder under Fengwu's feet and then at the cloth in Fengwu's hands. "Fengwu, are you wiping the books? Why are you doing these things?" Irene was not trying to find an excuse to change the topic. She was really curious about what this Fengwu wanted to do here. "I work here. Naturally, I have to do things." Fengwu took out a book to wipe and put it back when she answered Irene. "You work here?" Irene's surprised voice changed. What did she come here to do? She actually started working. Could it be that she was not preparing to look for the treasure map or go on the road to look for opportunities? Or was she doing some hidden mission? As long as she helped with the library, she could get clues or something like that. Because she could not guess Fengwu's thoughts, Irene began to let her imagination run wild. Fengwu nodded as an answer. However, was it strange to work here? She blinked and blinked again. She did not understand what they were thinking. "Fengwu, could it be that you received some hidden mission? As long as you help with these books, you can get clues to the treasure map?" Irene's words were a test for Fengwu. She suspected that Fengwu was also a transmigrator. That was why she used the online gaming language. For example, if one was not a transmigrator, no one in this world would be able to understand the hidden mission. Originally, Irene wanted to see Fengwu give herself away. However, she did not expect that Fengwu only blinked her eyes in confusion and did not answer her. It was as if she did not understand what she was saying at all. Could it be that she guessed wrong? This Fengwu was not a transmigrator. However, she did not look like a reincarnated person either. Could it be that she guessed wrong? Fengwu was a native of Heavenly Wind continent. She was not a transmigrator or reincarnator. I don't know what the hidden mission is. I only know that if I work here, I can read books for free. Hidden mission? What was that? Why couldn't she understand Irene's words? You can only read books for free? Irene did not really believe Fengwu's words. She thought that Fengwu was not telling the truth. However, even if she did not tell the truth, it was not hard to understand. Thinking about it from another perspective, if she encountered a rare hidden mission, would she tell others just because they asked her? Wouldn't she be an idiot then? Fengwu nodded her head, indicating that this was the case. Although Irene did not believe it, it was not good for her to ask too much about this kind of thing. The two of them did not continue chatting and went about their own business. Fengwu was busy tidying up the books while Irene was busy reading. Soon 2 hours passed. Irene was lucky enough to find some clues in the book. She saw a paragraph in the travelogue. The author of the travelogue found a strange light in a cave when he passed by a nearby mountain. He suspected that there was a treasure in the world. However, he did not find anything when he went there. In the end, the author could only leave regretfully. Reading this, Irene felt that this paragraph was an important clue. Therefore, when Irene saw this paragraph, she wrote down the address and left in a hurry. Fengwu spent the whole day helping the old man tidy up the books. When she did not have to work at night, she lit the candle and read books. Fortunately, although this library did not pay, it would give you a place to live. Although the place was only a small utility room, Fengwu had never been picky about where to sleep, so she gladly accepted it. In the following days, Fengwu went to work during the day and read books for a few hours at night. After that, she went to sleep. Her life was very regular. The old man in the library was actually the curator. After observing Fengwu for a few days, he expressed his curiosity about this little girl. This little girl named Fengwu was young, but she was very strong. This little girl could move such heavy books by herself. What made the old curator feel the most incredible was that this little girl read very fast. Sometimes when he came to patrol at night, he saw this little girl holding a book and flipping through it for a few minutes before changing to another one. Originally, the old curator thought that Fengwu was just reading casually. Later, one day, because he couldn't sleep at night, the old curator randomly picked a book that Fengwu had read and said that he wanted to test her. As a result, Fengwu answered all the questions that the old curator set. She even remembered the book number clearly. This amazing memory made the old curator feel very incredible. Chapter 35. Fengwu read a wide range of books. Apart from swordsmanship, she also read books on magic. Although Fengwu didn't have any talent for magic, Fengwu was curious about it. Especially when she saw how a Jur could set himself on fire, and how Irene could heal everyone with magic. Therefore, Fengwu always wanted to understand what magic was. It wasn't easy for her to read so many books on magic, so Fengwu naturally wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. For the next half a month, Fengwu didn't go anywhere. She was completely immersed in the sea of books and read all the books on magic in the library. Fengwu's reading speed and her amazing memory surprised even the 3 supervising teachers in front of the water mirror. Apart from the head librarian, this child's memory is terrifying. If she had any talent for magic, her future would be extraordinary. It's a pity that she doesn't have any talent at all. The female mage in front of the water mirror said regretfully. So what if she doesn't have any talent for magic? This child will also be extraordinary in our swordsmanship department. Don't you think so, James? James, the stern teacher in the swordsmanship department, glanced lightly at the smiling fellow beside him and didn't reply. Half a month had passed without them noticing. In this half a month, some people had found something, but it wasn't what they needed. From the initial excitement of finding the required item to the subsequent disappointment, their moods had changed drastically. Some of the smarter ones found people in the safe zone to trade, while those who weren't smart naturally knew to follow suit when they saw others doing so. Those who didn't find anything scowled miserably, and could only look on with envy and jealousy as others traded for the magic items they needed in front of them. At the same time, they made up their minds to work harder to find what they needed in the coming days. After helping the librarian for half a month, Fengwu finally sorted out the places the old librarian had requested. Because the work was completed, Fengwu naturally couldn't stay in the library to read free books. Before she left, Fengwu finally found the information she wanted and knew what a treasure map was. So, a treasure map was a map. Some people hid their treasures and drew the place where they hid their treasures. This way they could make a treasure map. After reading books for half a month, Fengwu finally learned something. During her time in the library, Fengwu had not only read a lot of books about magic, but she also found a piece of worn-out parchment in an old book. If someone else had found such a thing, they would have definitely hidden it away and searched for the location marked on the parchment. However, Fengwu clearly wasn't an ordinary person. After finding the map, Fengwu didn't put it into her spatial bag. Instead, she took the mysterious map to the old curator. The old curator stared at the map for a while before he recalled the origin of the map. According to the old curator, the map was found by the third curator of this library when he was traveling. At that time, the third curator put in a lot of effort to study the treasure map that was engraved on the parchment. It wasn't easy for him to find the location of the treasure, but he couldn't find it no matter how hard he tried. After that, several generations of curators studied the treasure map. When they arrived at the location, they dug up the ground nearby but still couldn't find anything. After confirming that the treasure map might be a prank, the current curator casually threw the treasure map in a corner. He didn't expect that Fengwu would find it now. The old curator saw that Fengwu seemed to be very interested in the useless treasure map, so he gave the treasure map to Fengwu. After Fengwu thanked the curator, she happily put the treasure map into her spatial bag. After finishing her work, Fengwu asked where the treasure was found by the previous curators. After getting the answer, she waved goodbye to the old curator. After leaving the library, Fengwu walked alone on the streets of Neutral City. She blinked her big eyes and thought about what to do next. In the end, Fengwu decided to go directly to the mountain range mentioned by the curator to see if she could find the treasure. Before going to look for the treasure, Fengwu went to the Li family's bun shop and bought 200 big meat buns. Because of Fengwu's purchasing power, the bun shop owner namely gave Fengwu a few extra red bean buns. The red bean buns were sweet. After taking a bite, Fengwu liked the taste and ordered 100 red bean buns. Li was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. When Fengwu asked him for directions, he told Fengwu that she could hitch a ride at the relay station. The relay station didn't charge much. It only cost 2 silver coins per person. Fengwu had less than 5 silver coins left, so she could still afford to hitch a ride to the relay station. Perhaps he really liked girls like Fengwu who liked to eat his buns, so he got his chubby son Jia to lead the way for Fengwu. This time Jia didn't ask Fengwu for drumsticks. Perhaps he had been taught a lesson by his father, so he obediently led the way for Fengwu. After sending Fengwu to the relay station, the chubby boy waved goodbye to Fengwu. Fengwu found a beast carriage at the relay station that would take her to the mountain range mentioned by the curator. She paid the driver 2 silver coins and got on the carriage. As soon as Fengwu got on the carriage, a series of resentful screams were heard. Other than Fengwu, there were a few other people in the carriage who could be considered Fengwu's enemies. There was Alice, who claimed to be the daughter of the president of the Hermes Chamber of Commerce in Anlo City. There was also Orlando and her group, who tried to annoy Fengwu on the flying beast carriage. However, other than her 3 followers, there were only 2 other brainless suitors who were with Orlando. The captain and vice-captain of Orlando's group were nowhere to be seen. They probably weren't with the 6 of them. The 7 people in the carriage could be said to be Fengwu's enemies. However, Fengwu didn't take them to heart. Hearing the screams, Fengwu only raised her head to take a look. Although she felt that she had seen them before, she couldn't remember their names no matter how hard she tried. Moreover, these people were obviously hostile to her. Fengwu wasn't a person who liked to socialize, so she didn't go up to greet them. She just casually found a seat a little farther away from them and sat down. However, the beast carriage was only so big. Even if Fengwu deliberately sat further away, it was still impossible for her to be too far away from them. "Alice, you know this woman too." Hearing the same exclamation coming from the side, Orlando turned to look at her cousin in surprise. Alice was the daughter of the president of the Hermes Chamber of Commerce and was also her cousin. Although Alice might only be the daughter of a businessman in the upper class, The Hermes Chamber of Commerce was the largest chamber of commerce in Yanai Nation. Its financial resources were definitely one of the best in the country. Chapter 36. Although Orlando's family was also a middle-class aristocrat, in terms of financial resources, it was definitely not comparable to the Hermes Chamber of Commerce. Because of the wealth behind Alice, Orlando was still very friendly to this cousin of hers. In addition, Alice herself was also very generous to her friends, and had always given a lot of good things to Orlando. Therefore, Orlando naturally valued Alice, a friend who could bring benefits to herself. Of course I know her. Do you remember the woman I told you about in Onlua City who embarrassed me? That's her. Alice said while gnashing her teeth. She couldn't hide the hatred in her eyes. Alice, who had been doted on since she was a child, had never been so humiliated. That day, Feng Wu had set her up on the crowded street, and many civilians had pointed at her and gossiped about her. Fortunately, her family's guards arrived in time, so she was not taken advantage of by those men with bad intentions on the street. Thinking that she was almost attacked by a man who looked like a pig that day, Alice's heart was filled with shame and anger. Discovering that the enemy of the two was actually the same person, Orlando's mood became a little better. So the woman you were talking about is her. The person I told you about who eavesdropped on me and Alu on the flying beast carriage and injured us was also her. This woman's heart is really vicious. Orlando looked at Alice with an aggrieved face. Alice was very fond of this gentle cousin who loved her very much. Not only were they cousins, but they were also very good friends. As soon as she heard that the two sisters had suffered a big loss in the hands of the same person, Alice's mood was very bad. The two pursuers of Orlando on the side, when they saw Feng Wu get on the carriage, their eyes also widened, and the hatred in their eyes was completely undisguised. Now that the monster who could emit fire was not by her side, they would definitely not let go of this woman who dared to hurt Orlando. The 7 people on the carriage all had bad intentions towards Feng Wu. Originally, the two pursuers of Orlando wanted to immediately attack Feng Wu, but they were stopped by Orlando. Orlando, this woman and her companion injured you on the flying beast carriage. Why don't you let us teach her a lesson? Although the two suitors were unwilling to let go of such a great opportunity, the person who stopped them was their goddess, Orlando. No matter how unwilling they were, they could only give up the idea of immediately finding trouble with Feng Wu. Don't forget that we're in the middle of an examination. If someone finds out that we're attacking other candidates, we might be disqualified. Orlando wasn't an impulsive person. Although she hated Feng Wu for humiliating her on the flying beast carriage, she didn't want to be humiliated. She would never be able to relive the day when she could only struggle and beg incessantly. She could only slowly wait for death, and in the end she was thrown aside like a dead dog. She, Orlando, had never suffered such a big loss before. She must find this woman in front of her and get her revenge. Although she couldn't wait to tear Feng Wu into pieces, she immediately regained her rationality when she remembered that they were in the middle of a test. She had to think of a way to let this woman dig her own grave without having to do it herself. After Orlando's reminder, the two suitors immediately remembered that they were still in the middle of an examination. After half a month, they had only found a sword used by swordmasters and 2 parchments used by swordmasters. Among them, there were still 4 people who didn't get the items they needed. The reason why they hitched a ride on this beast carriage was that they wanted to find the magic items they needed, or the parchments that recorded the sword skills in the nearby mountains. They didn't expect that before they found what they needed, they would first encounter Feng Wu, this great enemy. Because they were too excited to see Feng Wu, they forgot their original purpose. Fortunately, Orlando reminded them. Otherwise, if they really went to kill Feng Wu, they would definitely be disqualified. Thinking of this, the two of them immediately looked at Orlando with admiration and gratitude for reminding them just now. Orlando smiled shyly and looked away slightly. In fact, she was very disdainful of the stupidity of these 2 people. They couldn't even think of such a simple thing. If it weren't for the talent of these 2 people and their loyalty to her, she wouldn't have bothered with these 2 idiots. Then what should we do now? Are we just going to let her go like this? Alice was very unwilling to let go of her enemy. Of course not, let's follow her first and look for an opportunity, Orlando said after thinking about it. Among these people, Orlando obviously played the role of the leader, so no one objected to her decision. While they were talking, Alando had already built a soundproof cover with magic, so she wasn't worried that Fengwu would hear what they were saying. In fact, Fengwu really didn't care about what they were talking about. Fengwu was sitting in the carriage at the moment, eating the big meat buns she bought from Fatty Lee. After spending a few hours in the carriage, they finally arrived at the mountain range marked on the map. Fengwu called the coachman to stop, then she jumped off the beast carriage alone. She took out the map and looked at it to determine the direction, then she ignored the people behind her and walked away alone. Did you guys see that? Don't tell me she's holding the treasure map in her hand. Alice cried out in shock. It must be, otherwise why would she come to this kind of desolate mountain range? The two pursuers thought of the old parchment in Fengwu's hand, and their hearts were burning. On the side, Yali and the other two girls were also burning. They still needed 4 magic items. If they could get 1 or 2 more from Fengwu, then there would be more qualified people in their group. The coachman saw that these people were standing at the door, and didn't seem to want to continue the journey, so he was very unhappy. Are you guys going to get off or not? If you want to get off, hurry up, I still have to hurry. After the coachman's reminder, the people who had been shocked by the treasure map finally regained their senses. The 7 of them scrambled to get off the carriage and ran in the direction Fengwu had gone. Hey, I say you guys. The coachman saw the direction they chased, and his face changed. Just as he was about to open his mouth to remind them, he didn't expect them to run so fast that they didn't pay attention to the coachman. I originally wanted to remind them that there is the gathering place of the extreme icebergs. How can these people run so fast? The coachman sighed and drove the carriage away. When Fengwu left, the coachman didn't pay attention to the direction Fengwu left, so a certain person reminded him. This time Alando and her group of 7 people chased after Fengwu. This target was too big. Even if the coachman wanted to pretend that he didn't see it, it was impossible for him to remind them. He didn't expect that Alando and her group would ignore the coachman's kindness. Because they missed the coachman's reminder, Alando and her group were doomed to a tragedy. Chapter 37. Alando's group of 7 people chased after Fengwu, but even after a few minutes of chasing, they still didn't see Fengwu's figure. The 7 people couldn't help but secretly curse. This woman looked small, but they didn't expect her to walk so fast. Fortunately, although Elu was only a sword master, she had a useless innate spirit ability, that is, olfactory amplification. Under Elu's control, she can amplify her sense of smell by dozens of times, allowing her to smell even the slightest smell. The so-called innate spirit ability refers to the ability that comes out of the mother's womb when a person is born. For example, some people are born with infinite strength, some people are born with the ability to see through things, some people are born with amazing speed, and some people can tell all the ingredients and methods of a certain potion or food as long as they eat it. This ability is also a sensory enhancement ability, but it is much more powerful than Elu's olfactory amplification. The olfactory amplification ability is very rare. People who have this ability are often born pharmacists, and are the most wanted apprentices of all powerful pharmacists. There is another innate ability that is also popular among pharmacists, absolute perception. This ability can amplify the perception of one's hands by countless times. When mixing potions, in addition to being able to distinguish all the ingredients, the perception of one's hands is also very important. People who have absolute perception can sense the changes in the potion in the test tube when mixing potions. According to the changes in the potion, they can often know whether the strength and speed they use has an effect on the potion. Such an ability is more important for a pharmacist than the olfactory amplification. As for Ailu's innate ability of smell, it can't be regarded as a remarkable ability. Moreover, this ability doesn't have much use. It can only be used to find things no matter what profession it is. It can't be used to make any great contribution. This is also the reason why Elu didn't receive as much attention as Alando and the others in the academy before. With the support of Elu's spirit ability, they didn't lose Fengwu. After chasing for an hour, they still can't see Fengwu's figure. Suddenly, Elu stopped, and her face looked a bit strange. What's wrong? Why did you stop? Alando looked at Eileen with some displeasure, secretly blaming her for wasting time. Regarding Ailu's innate spirit ability, Alando actually had a trace of jealousy in her heart. Although AI Lu's innate spirit ability was of little value, but no matter how useless it was still a kind of talent. Although Orlando thought highly of herself, she didn't have a single innate ability. This made Orlando's mood turn sour every time she saw AI Lu use her innate ability. The others also looked at Elu impatiently, causing Elu's face to turn ugly. Of course she wasn't angry with Orlando, but the aura she smelled made her very uneasy. There are magical beasts coming from the front. We seem to have entered the territory of some magical beasts. It was not a strange thing for magical beasts to live in a mountain forest like this, so after listening to Elu's words, Orlando and the others not only didn't worry, but also looked at Elu with a look of making a fuss over nothing. Elu, it's not like you haven't seen a magical beast before. It's just one magical beast. Why are you so useless? Millie disdainfully snorted, as if she didn't like Elu's cowardice. This time Elu didn't quarrel with Millie as usual, but instead looked at the front with a dignified face. It's not just one magical beast, it's a group. They seem to be coming this way. The smell is getting stronger and stronger. There's a very strong smell of ice magic in the air. It should be a group of ice magic beasts. As for the species of magical beasts, I can't tell. AI Lu's face became as pale as paper. Obviously, she was very afraid of the approaching magical beasts. Others may not be able to feel it, but from the smell she smelled, she could tell that these magical beasts were very strong. By no means were they ordinary first or second-ranked magical beasts, they were at least third-ranked magical beasts. What? A group? If it was just one magical beast, the 7 of them wouldn't be afraid, but now there was a group of them. If what Elu said was true, then they must have stepped into the territory of some kind of magical beasts. Thinking that a group of magical beasts was coming here, everyone's face changed in an instant. Quickly, let's get out of here first. Orlando knew Elu's ability. She knew that Elu wouldn't lie about this kind of thing. It seemed that the matter of chasing that hateful woman could only be put aside and escape first. Although the 7 of them hated Fengwu to the bone, they valued their own lives in this assessment more. Now was the critical period of the assessment. They couldn't lose their qualification because of a group of magical beasts. While the 7 of them were busy running for their lives, Fengwu was following a small ice bird farther away. Fengwu's natural affinity and ability to communicate with magical beasts and plants made these magical beasts not hurt her. So for others, it was not dangerous for Fengwu to enter the territory of the ice birds. Little Nat, thank you for leading the way for me. Goodbye. Fengwu waved goodbye to the cute little ice bird after leaving the territory of the ice birds. The little ice bird called Nat reluctantly flew 2 circles around Fengwu, then said in a childish voice, "There are humans in front of us who broke into our territory. Father and the others have already gone to drive them away. I also have to go back. Xiao Wu, the scent on your body makes me feel so comfortable. I really don't want to part with you." The little ice bird intimately rubbed its head against Fengwu's neck and flew away reluctantly. The little ice bird was sent by its father to lead the way for her. When Fengwu first entered the territory of the ice birds, the other birds also rushed out to attack her. But when they got close to her, they found that Fengwu had a very pleasant scent on her body. This scent made them feel very comfortable, as if they were full of vitality by her side. Because Fengwu had an affinity with animals and plants, not only did the ice birds not hurt Fengwu, a mature male bird even sent his son who had just learned how to fly to send Fengwu away from their territory. It could be said that no human had ever received such friendly treatment, but because of her own uniqueness, Fengwu enjoyed it for once. After bidding farewell to the little ice bird, Fengwu continued to use her qinggong to fly through the forest. The reason why Orlando and the others couldn't catch up to Fengwu wasn't because Fengwu was too fast, but because Fengwu had been using her qinggong to shuttle through the forest since she entered. Orlando and the others, who were only relying on their 2 legs, naturally couldn't catch up to Fengwu. After using her qinggong to fly for a while, Fengwu successfully arrived at the location marked on the map. The location marked on the map was a cliff. The bottom of the cliff was covered in fog, and it was impossible to see how high the cliff was. Chapter 38. The ground on the cliff looked uneven, and there were even traces of a battle. The sunken part of the ground seemed to have been corroded by some kind of strong acid. Fengwu stood on the uneven ground and frowned as she looked at the ground. She then took out a map and looked at it for a while. At this time, Fengwu didn't know that an unexpected change was taking place outside the virtual world. Central City was a beautiful and prosperous city. The sky here was clear and sunny every day. It rarely rained and cloudy days were also very rare. However, the sky today was densely covered in clouds. The thick clouds formed a vortex that constantly rotated slowly in the sky. There were flashes of lightning in the clouds, and it looked like the end of the world had arrived. It made people feel terrified and hopeless. What's going on? Is the demon race going to appear again? Some people stood on the streets uneasily, looking at the dark clouds that suddenly appeared in the sky and the vortex formed by a large patch of dark clouds. They talked with the passers-by uneasily. It can't be. With the restriction of the 3 realms, it's impossible for demons to come to the human world unless they get a pass from the Lord of the Demon Realm. Someone on the side voiced out his doubts. I've heard that spatial rifts have appeared in many places, and many low-grade devilish beings are trying to sneak into this place. I think that strange energy vortex in the sky is a sign that devilish beings are trying to sneak into this place, someone said in a confident manner. You're thinking too much. Even if there are demons sneaking in through the spatial cracks, which demon would be so stupid as to choose Central City as the place to descend? Isn't that suicide? This person clearly didn't agree with the previous person's words and retorted reasonably. Hearing this person's words, many people nodded. Wasn't that right? This was the Central City that gathered the most experts in the entire continent. Unless the Demon King personally descended, even the nobles of the demon realm wouldn't dare to rashly descend here. Thinking of this, everyone was even more curious about the thing in the sky. Just what was it that was coming? Such a large energy reaction was definitely not ordinary. Not only were the passers-by curious and nervous, but the major forces in the Central City had also taken precautions against the sudden energy reaction in the sky. Unlike the tense atmosphere in other places in the Star Hall or the Sacred Palace, 2 young men were watching the changes in the sky in a room in the Star Hall. The 2 men appeared to be around 20 years old. One had blonde hair and golden eyes, while the other had black hair and black eyes. Their faces were as beautiful and gentle as angels. There was no energy fluctuation coming from them. They looked like ordinary people. What a powerful energy reaction. Something is about to cross over. The golden-haired man gazed gently at the sky. His gaze was as gentle as jade, with an indescribable tenderness. What is it that could cause such a huge energy reaction? The black-haired man smiled. There seemed to be hundreds of flowers blooming behind him. The man seemed to be very interested in the thing that was about to break through the void. There's the aura of a divine artifact. Could it be that another divine seal is about to descend into the lower realms? But I've never heard of any god from the upper realm sending down a divine seal. The golden-haired man seemed to have a trace of doubt on his face. Since the disaster 10,000 years ago, the high gods of the upper realm sent down 8 divine seals in the mortal realm to protect the peace of the mortal realm. The 8 divine seals were the seal of spring, seal of summer, seal of autumn, and seal of winter, which represented the 4 seasons. There were also the seals of heaven, earth, sun, and moon, which represented the 4 seasons. The 4 divine seals sealed the power of the gods of the 4 seasons, as well as the power of heaven, earth, sun, and moon. Once the seal was broken, the power would increase, and it could also summon artifacts from the divine realm. Each artifact had the power to destroy the world. The 8 divine seals were requested by the master of the Star Hall, from the gods of the heaven realm 10,000 years ago. The 8 master gods of the upper realm were grateful for the master of the Star Hall's painstaking efforts to protect the mortal realm. So they specially bestowed the 8 divine seals to the mortal realm to protect the peace of the mortal realm. The masters of the 8 divine seals were chosen by the divine seals themselves. The divine seals would choose the person whose aura was the most compatible with their own as the host. Once the host died, the divine seals would leave the body and choose the next host. Because of the power of the divine seals, there were only 8 divine seals in the entire mortal realm. As the gods of the heavens, it was impossible for the gods to send down their divine seals for no reason. Therefore, the 2 of them were surprised by the sudden appearance of the aura. The aura is getting stronger and stronger. Do we need to stop this artifact? The black-haired man hesitantly opened his thin lips. There seemed to be a stream of light flashing in his eyes. However, it was only for a moment, and the stream of light was fleeting. The golden-haired man pondered for a moment and shook his head gently. I don't think there's a need. The divine seals have spirituality. If a divine artifact really comes from the upper realm, let it choose the most suitable master. That's true. The black-haired man nodded slightly. The two of them silently drank fragrant tea while watching the changes in the sky. About 10 minutes later, the clouds in the sky became thicker and thicker. Suddenly, a thick bolt of lightning flashed through the clouds. A silver light flew out of the lightning. This light directly cut through the huge whirlpool in the sky and appeared in midair. After the light appeared, it seemed to be curious about where this place was. Then, it looked around the land spiritually. Finally, it seemed to be certain of something. It chose a direction and flew away in an instant. That aura, it must be a divine artifact. It must be a divine artifact. Someone shouted excitedly. That's right. I saw it too. With such spirituality, it must be a divine artifact. The person next to him said excitedly. I just don't know if it's a staff or a sword. I'm a swordsman. If it's a divine sword, and if I can find it and make the divine sword recognize me as its master, I will definitely become a peerless master in the future. A young swordsman muttered to himself as he looked in the direction where the divine artifact disappeared. The young swordsman's words seemed to have turned on a switch. These passers-by who had gathered to gossip suddenly chased in the direction where the divine artifact disappeared. Wasn't that right? As long as they found the divine artifact and thought of a way to make the divine artifact recognize them as its master, they would not have to worry about not being able to reach the sanctuary realm in the future. They might even have the chance to become a god. With this thought, who could remain calm? The entire central city was in an uproar as a craze for finding the divine artifact started. At this moment, the three teachers guarding the entrance to the virtual world were unaware of the changes in the outside world. They were still watching the candidates in the virtual world in front of the water mirror. The quality of this batch of candidates was not the highest, but it was not bad either. There were some good seedlings in this batch. If they were nurtured well, they would definitely be a force to be reckoned with in the future. Chapter 39. The three teachers were currently looking at Orlando and the others, who were being chased by a flock of icebirds because they were following Fengwu. They shook their heads as they watched. The mental fortitude of these examinees is lacking. Now is the critical period of the examination, yet they still have the time to think about personal grudges. I think it will be very difficult for these students to pass the examination. James expressionlessly announced the fate of Orlando and the others. The other two teachers didn't raise any objections. These students' mental fortitude was indeed lacking, and their future achievements wouldn't be too great. That girl in white is more interesting. She can actually talk to magic beasts. This should be her innate ability. However, with such an ability, why didn't she take the Beastmaster examination? Why did she go to your Swordmaster department instead? The female teacher from the magic department muttered to herself in confusion. Hey Rosalina, our Swordmaster department isn't bad either. We aren't inferior to those arrogant Beastmasters. The teacher from the Swordmaster department who had been smiling all this time chuckled in protest. Elrog, I'm not saying that your Swordmaster department isn't good. I just think that girl's talent is more suitable for the Beastmaster class. Rosalina cast a sidelong glance at Elrog and spoke coquettishly. Just as Elrog was about to say something, a silver light with unparalleled power unexpectedly rushed into the water mirror like a meteor. The three of them wanted to stop it, but before they could do anything, they were sent flying by the powerful force. The three people who were sent flying took a few breaths to stabilize their bodies, but that mysterious silver light had already disappeared. What do we do? Rosalina anxiously looked at the water mirror that had already become a blur. Now that the entire water mirror was being disturbed by the external energy, it became very unstable. All the students taking the examination in the mirror world were now completely unable to grasp the situation of those students. If something happened at this time, even if they died in the mirror world, they would just wake up from a dream and would not be harmed in any way. However, an unknown variable had appeared. No one knew if this energy would affect the mental strength of the examinees in the mirror. Let's first ask the dean if we should stop the examination. James's face was ashen as he spoke in a deep voice. There's no need to stop it. After a while, the water mirror will return to normal and the test will continue. A voice filled with love suddenly appeared in the minds of the three of them. This voice was very pleasant and gentle, but when they heard this voice, their originally nervous and worried feelings suddenly left the three of them. The three people's expressions changed as they bowed towards a direction in the sky that couldn't be seen. Dean. The Dean of the Notre Dame du Starlight was a legendary figure who had lived for countless years. Although no one had seen the Dean fight, everyone knew that the Dean was a peerless expert who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Lord of the Star Hall. It was even said that the Dean was a god who had been left behind in the human world. Regardless of whether those rumors were true or false, in the eyes of the teachers and students of the Notre Dame du Starlight, their headmaster was mysterious, powerful, and very kind. He was a powerhouse worthy of respect. But Dean, the thing that rushed into the water mirror just now. Rosalina bit her lip as she wanted to say something. Don't worry. The thing that rushed into the water mirror just now was a divine sword that crossed over from another world. That divine sword seems to have taken a fancy to one of the examinees this year as its host. The loving voice appeared again with the power to calm people's hearts, as if it could purify all the evil in the world. Rosalina and the other two finally heaved a sigh of relief. As long as the students inside weren't harmed, it would be easy to handle. The three of them bowed towards the sky again. They knew that the dean's mental strength had already left. Looks like this year's examinees are very lucky. Elrog smiled like a blooming lily. It looked like the days ahead would be very interesting. He was now looking forward more and more to the new students entering the school. The world outside seemed to have calmed down, but the world in the mirror welcomed the last place. The moment that the unknown divine weapon passed through the water mirror space, the entire virtual world shook violently. God, what's going on? Is there an earthquake? Some examinees were frightened by the sudden tremor and looked around uneasily. There were many people who felt the same way as the examinees. Even the natives in the virtual world were scared. The entire neutral city was in a state of panic. Outside the neutral city, the small tribes and the examinees who were looking for their own opportunities were also very uneasy. The natives of the small tribes knelt on the ground and looked up at the sky. They were all mumbling something as if they were praying. The examinees who were walking outside silently held onto their weapons. They didn't know if the earthquake this time was also a part of the assessment. They could only be secretly on guard and deal with it carefully. Look, what's that in the sky? A white light streaked across the sky and quickly fell in a certain direction. Could that be the opportunity we're looking for in this assessment? Someone guessed. Let's go and take a look. That must be something incredible. Who knows, we might even get extra points if we get it. Someone couldn't wait to call out to his companions. No matter what it is, I must find it before anyone else. This was an examinee who was looking for opportunities alone. What is that? Could it be the thing we're looking for? Regardless of how everyone guessed, after the white light found its target, it quickly streaked across the sky and disappeared into a mountain. At this moment, what was Fengwu doing? The earthquake just now had made the nearby magical beasts very uneasy. At this moment, a magical beast rotting fleshworm that lived in this area all year round wobbled and crawled to a spot not far from Fengwu. This rotting fleshworm lived in this area all year round. The marks on the ground were melted by the strong acid from the insect-type magical beast's body. Fengwu blinked her large eyes and stared unblinkingly at this extremely ugly worm. This rotting fleshworm belonged to the dark element. This type of magical beast usually lived underground and would only crawl to the surface at night. This rotting fleshworm might have been startled out by the earthquake just now. Fengwu looked at this unappetizing worm. A small sword had already been obtained from Fengwu's space ring. It must be said that although our Fengwu girl liked magical beasts, that didn't include those ugly magical beasts. Magical beasts usually had low intelligence and only had the instinct to eat. They wouldn't get close to others for any reason. Of course, they wouldn't be affected by Fengwu's aura. Chapter 40. The carrion worm had emerged from the ground due to the earthquake. The bright sunlight on the ground made the carrion worm, who was used to living in the dark world, feel very uncomfortable. The carrion worm's mood was very bad because of the sunlight. When it saw the Fengwu girl not far from it, it immediately spat a mouthful of acid at Fengwu. The acid dripped onto the ground and made a sizzling sound. The ground, which was already like the surface of the moon, became even more uneven. Fengwu nimbly dodged the carrion worm's acid attack. When the carrion worm saw that its attack had missed, it continued to spit acid saliva at Fengwu. As Fengwu dodged, she used windward willow leaf steps and approached the carrion worm in a flash. She used a sword move, and the small sword's blade cut into the carrion worm's body, making close contact with the carrion worm's hard shell. This contact caused sparks to fly between Fengwu's sword and the carrion worm's body. It was a misunderstanding, but there really were sparks. Although Fengwu's small sword had pierced the carrion worm's vital point, the carrion worm's shell was too hard. The small sword in Fengwu's hand was not a powerful weapon. It was just convenient to use, so Fengwu always carried it with her. The small sword could not pierce through the carrion worm's hard shell. Fengwu's attack did not cause any substantial damage to the carrion worm other than slowing down its movements. Fengwu frowned. She could not beat it? Just as Fengwu was thinking about whether she should escape, a huge pressure appeared in the sky. This pressure directly pressed the carrion worm to the ground, and cracks appeared on its body. Following the pressure was an ancient silver sword. The sword was silver in color and emitted a silver-white light. It gave people a feeling that it came from ancient times. Just one look was enough to make people feel that it was extraordinary. When Fengwu saw the ancient sword appear, her beautiful black eyes instantly lit up, and a trace of excitement appeared in her originally dazed and adorable eyes. Xiaochun. When the ancient sword heard the call, it flew towards Fengwu spiritedly. It looked at the girl in front of it and seemed to be confused. It was clearly Master's aura, but why did it look different? Although Gu Jian doubted that his master's appearance was different, he was certain that the girl in front of him was his master. Other than his master, no one else could give off such a comfortable aura. After confirming the identity of the girl in front of it, the ancient sword named Xiaochun flew to the girl's side. It intimately rubbed the girl's cheek, and the entire sword let out a cheerful sword cry. At this moment, outside the mirror world, the three invigilators looked at the mirror that had become blurry. They were a little anxious. Although the dean had said that the water mirror would return to normal soon, they couldn't see the candidates' performance. How were they going to grade them? Just as the invigilators were anxiously thinking of a way to repair the mirror once again transmitted an image. All the examinees appeared in the mirror again. The three invigilators wanted to find out who the owner of the divine sword was, but after checking all the examinees, they could not find anything strange. What was going on? The invigilators could not figure out what had happened. Many of the examinees could not figure out either. They clearly saw the silver light fall here. Why couldn't they find anything after searching for a long time? Who could have taken the treasure? At this moment, Irene was also searching for the item that fell from the sky. She had a feeling that it was the most precious treasure in the entire virtual world. If she could get it, she would definitely be able to turn the tables on Zicheng. Unfortunately, Irene and the other examinees did not find anything. Although she was lucky enough to find a magic book in a tree hole while searching for the item that fell from the sky, and the magic book's level was not low, she did not find the item that fell from the sky. Even if she found the magic book and confirmed that she had passed the entrance examination of the Notre Dame du Starlight, she did not feel very happy. Irene was very sure that in the original plot, there was definitely no such thing as a rare treasure falling from the sky. That meant that the item that fell from the sky did not belong to the original plot. In the novel, such items were peerless treasures. It was really a pity that she could not obtain them. Now, she could only hope that whoever obtained the item would not be the female lead. In this world, Zicheng was the female lead. Could it be that the heavens had discovered her existence as a transmigrated female supporting character, so they wanted to give the female lead an extra golden finger? Irene could not help but let her imagination run wild. Her greatest enemy now was Zicheng, so she definitely did not want Zicheng to have any more golden decrees. If that happened, she was afraid that she would have no chance of winning against Zicheng. Thinking of the original plot, Irene's tragic ending in the novel, she would never let herself become like that. Never. At the same time, Zicheng and Eve were also disappointed because they did not find the mysterious item that fell from the sky. Zicheng had already found her own opportunity in the hands of the beggars. Moreover, the item she found was very powerful. Zicheng had already carefully memorized all the contents of the book. She did not know if the teachers would ask her to hand over the item she found. If they really asked her to hand it over, Zicheng absolutely would not be willing. A holy level magic book, that was not something that could be easily obtained. Therefore, when she found the magic book according to the treasure map, Zicheng had already memorized the only magic recorded in the book, which was the holy level magic. 9 dragons burn the heavens. Even if she could not understand the meaning of the magic in a short time, there was no harm in studying it slowly. Just as Zicheng memorized the magic incantation of the holy magic, a powerful body of energy suddenly appeared in the sky. Zicheng intuitively felt that it was a good item. Even the system on her body had notified her that it was a divine weapon. As for what kind of divine weapon it was, the system had not yet analyzed it. Knowing that it was a divine weapon, Zicheng was especially diligent in her search. However, in the end, she still returned empty-handed. Fortunately, she and Eve had already found the magic item. They were already destined to be accepted into the Notre Dame du Starlight. Although Zicheng was disappointed, she did not think too much like Irene. She was very curious about the owner of the divine weapon. However, there were too many candidates participating in the examination. To find the owner of the divine weapon among so many people, unless that person stood up and admitted it himself, it was simply impossible. Other than the 2 female leads, Zicheng and Irene, and the female supporting character who was preparing to counterattack, the other candidates who were also searching for the divine weapon were also cursing one after another. Fuck, who actually ran faster than me? I was originally at the foot of the mountain. When I saw that thing fall, I immediately went up the mountain to look for it. I still couldn't find it. Who is so lucky to run so fast? Who is it? Stand up and answer me. I promise I won't beat you to death. A man dressed as a swordsman shouted loudly while holding his sword. Chapter 41. On the side, there were some people who also came for the treasure. Although these people didn't know that it was a divine tool, and only regarded it as a kind of opportunity in the assessment, but the feeling of missing out on such an opportunity was still very annoying. Fortunately, these people didn't know that it was a divine tool, otherwise there might be people who would vomit blood. At this time, where was Fengwu who got the treasure that so many people wanted? At this time, Fengwu had already gone down the mountain. With the help of Xiaochun, Fengwu smoothly killed the devil insect, and also found the treasure chest hidden in the devil insect's body. That chest was most likely eaten by the devil insect as food, but because the chest was made of special pearl material, it was not digested by the devil insect. No wonder so many generations of librarians couldn't find the treasure. It turned out that the treasure had been eaten by the devil insect, so naturally no one could find it. Xiaochun had been taken into Fengwu's Sea of Consciousness. Because Pure Sword was a divine sword that signed a soul contract with Fengwu, so it could hide in Fengwu's Sea of Consciousness. Xiaochun was a nickname given by Fengwu. Its real name should be Pure Sword. Since before Fengwu was born, Xiaochun had been neighbors with her master. Her master said that Xiaochun was a very magical sword, and no one in the world could pull it out from under the waterfall. If she could pull Xiaochun out, then Xiaochun would belong to her. When Pure Sword and her master became neighbors, she didn't know. She only knew that since she was conscious, she knew that under the waterfall not far from her in her master's residence, there was a silver sword. It was obviously washed by the water of the waterfall for so many years, but there was no trace of rust. When Fengwu was 10 years old, her master asked her to pull out the sword, and she easily pulled out the sword. At that time, she remembered that her master looked at her with gratification and worry. Since he was 10 years old, Xiaochun had always been by her side. They ate and slept together, played together every day, and practiced swordsmanship together. Gradually, she found that Xiaochun could actually understand what she was saying. Although Xiaochun could not speak, she could feel that Xiaochun had his own thoughts. She happily told her master about her discovery. Her master told her that the pure sword in her hand was the purest treasure sword in the world. The person who had created this sword had used a pure heart to create the purest sword in the world. Only someone with a pure heart was qualified to become the owner of the pure sword. There were too many considerations in this world. The smarter the person, the more they would think. Since ancient times, there were many people with the talent of heaven who wanted to obtain the pure sword. However, they all failed. Afterwards, pure sword disappeared in the long river of time. People forgot that there was such a divine sword in the world. No one knew that pure sword ran to her master's mountain and became neighbors with her master. The pure sword was a sentient sword. It had its own consciousness and would choose a host that it liked. Fengwu was the second master of the pure sword. In other words, other than the person who created it, the pure sword had not recognized anyone as its master for thousands of years. Fengwu was the second master of the pure sword. Fengwu's mind was pure. She never had complicated thoughts. Her mind was very simple. Therefore, she was the most suitable host for the pure sword. This time, Fengwu did not know how she came here. She thought that she would never see Xiaochun again. She did not expect that Xiaochun would actually cut through time and space to find her. If Xiaochun could find her, did that mean that her master could also find her? Fengwu was looking forward to it. She was happy. She missed her master. After finding the treasure chest, Fengwu took it back to the library. She opened the treasure chest in front of the curator. The treasure that had not been found by several generations of curators was finally found by Fengwu. The old curator was very emotional. No matter who found it, the treasure map was finally proven to be real. As long as the treasure map was real, the old curator was already very happy. Fengwu was able to open the treasure chest in front of him. This made the old curator's impression of Fengwu increase. It was not easy to gain the old curator's friendliness. When the treasure chest was opened, there was only a tattered book lying inside. The old curator picked it up and took a look. He exclaimed, "Little girl, you're in luck. This is a divine tier sword skill." The old curator did not expect Fengwu's luck to be so good. She actually encountered a divine sword skill. Fengwu's eyes lit up. She was very satisfied with this sword skill. After finding the sword skill she needed, Fengwu was now certain that she could stay at Notre Dame du Starlight. Knowing this, Fengwu was in a good mood. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly. "Little girl, you'd better find a more ordinary sword skill. Although there are some divine sword skills in the outside world, they are still very rare. If you really hand this sword skill in, I'm afraid that you'll never have peace in the future." The old curator liked Fengwu very much. Therefore, he did not want to see such a good child fall because of her treasures. "Why?" Fengwu blinked her eyes, indicating that she did not understand. "Little girl, think about it. Once you go out, the outside world will definitely ask you to hand in the sword skill. Although the people at Notre Dame du Starlight will not do anything to you, once you've obtained the divine sword skill, you'll definitely be asked to hand it in. But once the news of you obtaining a god-tier sword skill spreads, believe me, all the experts will target you just to get a god-tier sword skill from you. Those people will do anything to get a god-tier sword skill. They won't even hesitate to use your family members to threaten you." When the old curator said this, the light in his eyes seemed to dim. However, Fengwu did not notice it. If Zicheng or Irene heard the old curator's words, they would definitely be suspicious. To them, the old curator was just an NPC in the game. It was impossible for him to know about the outside world. From the old curator's words, it was obvious that he was very knowledgeable about the outside world and had some special experiences. Unfortunately, Fengwu did not come from the modern world. This girl lived in a place similar to ancient Earth. Back then, people did not have any entertainment, let alone know about NPCs in online games. Fengwu did not notice the difference in the old curator. She was thinking about the old curator's words. She thought about how the bad guys would kidnap Bao Bao and Tank in order to snatch the sword skill. Fengwu frowned. She decided to listen to the old curator and not hand in the sword skill. "I'll listen to the curator." The old curator, who originally wanted to persuade her, paused when he heard Fengwu's firm voice. He stroked his beard in satisfaction. What an honest child. "Little girl, if you want to pass the entrance exam, you have to find a weapon or sword art that suits your attributes, right? Actually, I'm afraid that most of the sword arts have already been found. As for weapons, there are still some. You should go stroll around the streets and help some people who need help. It will be good for you." Chapter 42. The old curator's voice was exceptionally kind. Due to the Mirage Law, he couldn't reveal too much to others. However, he could still give some hints. Fengwu nodded obediently and put away the sword art. Then she bid farewell to the curator and went out shopping. By now, more than half the time limit had passed. Those who were lucky had already found what they needed. Those who were unlucky didn't find anything. But they didn't give up completely. They wandered around the city, unwilling to let go of any opportunity to find a clue to the treasure. There were a lot of NPCs in the neutral city, but not all of them had quests on them. Most of the NPCs who had quests had already sent them out. Those who wandered around the city for several days left after confirming that they couldn't find any clues in the city. The clues in the city had already been found. If they wanted to enter the Notre Dame du Starlight, they could only think of other ways to find a way. So when Fengwu wandered around the streets, she encountered candidates who had already found the items they needed. The word relax was written all over their faces. It was obvious that they had already passed the examination. Fengwu didn't know many candidates. She only knew a few of them when she teamed up with Fengwu. She didn't know the others. However, the difference between the natives and the candidates was very obvious. So, Fengwu knew that they were here to participate in the final examination. In the entire neutral city, aside from Fengwu, there were many candidates who had already completed the examination. Fengwu wasn't in a hurry. She bought a few big meat buns from Steamed Bun Li and ate them as she walked. Since she didn't know where the weapon the curator mentioned was, Fengwu could only wander around aimlessly. Steamed Bun Li's steamed buns were as delicious as ever. After Fengwu finished a big meat bun, she happily took out a second one and continued eating. At this time, not far ahead, there was a burst of exclamations. It turned out that a horse had been startled and was running amok in the city. A pregnant woman was accidentally pushed by someone in front of her, and was pushed to the crazy horse. At this time, it was too late to save the pregnant woman. Many people could only let out earth-shattering screams. Some of the candidates saw this scene and shifted their gazes away. This was a fake world to begin with. In any case, they had already found the quest item they were looking for. The life and death of these fake characters had nothing to do with them. Moreover, when they were doing their missions, they had suffered a lot from these natives in order to find clues. They had been asked to deliver letters, cook and clean the house. Who were they? These fictional characters dared to ask them to do work. Thinking back to how they suffered at the hands of the natives in order to find clues, many candidates who had already passed the exam felt a slight joy in their hearts when they saw the pregnant woman was about to be hit. Fengwu didn't have such complicated thoughts like the other candidates. When she saw the pregnant woman was about to be hit, she used wind willow leaf steps to teleport away. She finally dared to push the pregnant woman into the crowd before the carriage hit her. She stood in front of the horse and hugged the horse's neck with both hands. Strangely, the horse gradually calmed down and used its tongue to lick Fengwu's small hands. When the pregnant woman was pushed to the crowd by Fengwu, she was already caught by a group of kind-hearted people. Now that they saw Fengwu stop the horse, thunderous applause sounded on the street. "Little girl, you're really good. Little girl, you're amazing. This old woman wasn't as amazing as you when I was young." The one who spoke was a white-haired old woman. The old woman looked very old with wrinkles all over her face. "Little girl, thank you so much. Thank you for saving my wife. Thank you, little girl." This time, the one who came forward to thank her was a young man. The pregnant woman was protected in his arms and looked like she was still in a state of shock. The man's face was full of gratitude. If it wasn't for Fengwu's sudden appearance, he might have lost two of his closest relatives in a day. The man was naturally grateful to Fengwu for saving his wife and future child. Fengwu just blinked her big eyes and looked at the group of people who suddenly surrounded her without saying a word. The surrounding audience was still talking about Fengwu's heroic appearance when a middle-aged man in ordinary clothes ran over and thanked Fengwu repeatedly. It turned out that this man was the owner of the horse. Because a snake suddenly ran out of a restaurant and startled his horse, the horse lost control and ran away. Later, the owner of the restaurant also came out to apologize. He also compensated the pregnant woman and the horse owner for the goods that were kicked by the horse. The restaurant owner was a good person and didn't shirk responsibility. He even invited Fengwu to his restaurant and invited her to eat. According to the owner, if it wasn't for Feng Wu's sudden appearance, he was afraid that he would be responsible for someone's death. Therefore, it was necessary to treat Feng Wu to a meal. The young man turned out to be the blacksmith's son. After the old blacksmith knew that his daughter-in-law and future grandson were almost lost, he was so excited that he repeatedly thanked Feng Wu. He even gave his family's heirloom sword to Feng Wu as a thank you gift. This sword was a mission item. Feng Wu girl blinked her big eyes as she ate the large table of food prepared by the restaurant owner. She then realized that she had found a replacement mission item. The other examinees who were watching from the side all widened their eyes in disbelief. This guy actually got a mission item so easily. It was too easy, wasn't it? He just saved a person, and a mission item was delivered directly to his doorstep. Why didn't they have such good luck? Although they sighed at Feng Wu's good luck, because they had already completed the mission in advance, they didn't have any other thoughts. At this moment, Feng Wu didn't know that she had become famous among the examinees in the city. The examinees who watched from the beginning to the end spread the news of Feng Wu's good luck. Many people were sighing at the girl's good luck. There were only a few days left until the end of the assessment. Those who didn't find a mission item didn't dare to stay in the city. They had already left the neutral city to try their luck elsewhere. However, this girl didn't go anywhere and actually picked up a treasure in the city. If the examinees who left the city knew about this, they would be depressed to death. Feng Wu returned to the library under the watchful eyes of the restaurant owner and the blacksmith's family. They were surprised that Feng Wu was able to find a replacement mission item so quickly. The old manager was also shocked. This girl's luck wasn't too good. There were only 2 or 3 people who had a mission item in their hands. This girl actually casually walked around and found one. Chapter 43. The old curator didn't know what to say anymore. Because she had found the quest item, the old curator suggested that Feng Wu memorize the godly level sword incantation immediately. Because once the godly level sword incantation was taken out of this world, the person who controlled the virtual realm would know immediately. Therefore, Feng Wu could only memorize the god-level sword art in the next few days. Feng Wu's memory was very good. Although the god-level sword art wasn't something that the current Feng Wu could learn, she still had the genuine godly sword Xiaochun by her side. As a godly sword, it really wasn't difficult for Xiaochun to memorize such a god-level sword art. Although Feng Wu's memory was very good, the god-level sword art wasn't easy to deal with. The words in it were difficult to understand. If it wasn't for Xiaochun by her side, it really wouldn't be possible for Feng Wu to memorize this god-level sword art in the next few days by herself. Even the old curator only hoped that Feng Wu could memorize the first part of the sword art. When she came to the mirage in the future, she could slowly memorize the rest. The old curator never thought that Feng Wu would have a godly weapon like Xiaochun by her side. So Feng Wu didn't just memorize a small part of the first part like he thought. After Feng Wu had little silver memorize it, she handed the god-level sword art to the old curator. Just as the old curator said, she couldn't take this sword art out of this space, so she might as well give it to the old curator who had always taken care of her. The old curator didn't refuse and said that he would help Feng Wu put away the sword art. He told her to look for him the next time she came. Unfortunately, Feng Wu didn't understand the old curator's meaning. As for whether the two of them would meet again, Feng Wu really didn't know. Even if she was simple-minded, she could guess that this assessment space was a small world of its own. Even if she wanted to come back in the future, it would be very troublesome. After finding the magic sword that needed to be handed over, Feng Wu's days were much better. She had been staying in the library for the past few days reading many books. On the day the assessment ended, Feng Wu was directly teleported away. Fortunately, she had bid farewell to Grandpa Curator. The place where Feng Wu was sent to was not the outside world, but the seaside where they had first entered this world. All the participating students were already on the beach. Feng Wu glanced around casually and saw that there was indeed a crowd of people standing on the beach. Some of them were so excited that they kept chatting with other people who were also excited, while others were crying in despair and depression. Unknowingly, the examinees who had obviously obtained the qualifications to enter the academy, and those who were destined to fail had already been separated into 2 groups. One group stood on one side and did not talk to each other. Feng Wu didn't choose a side. She stood at the spot where she had first appeared, and the magic sword that she was going to hand over was placed in her portal bag. Not long after, the three invigilators appeared as expected. The three invigilators' figures were still so blurry that it was impossible to see what they looked like. However, from their figures, it was obvious that they were handsome men and beautiful women. The three invigilators, James, Elrog, and Rosalina, looked at the group of examinees below with gratified expressions. This assessment for the Notre Dame du Starlight has ended. Examinees who didn't gain anything will be directly teleported out. I hope that after you leave, you can practice your magic and sword skills diligently. Even if you can't enter the academy, don't give up on yourself because of one failure. Rosalina said gently and encouragingly. Hearing Rosalina's words of encouragement, many of the dejected examinees nodded and replied softly, yes, even though they were still sad that they had lost their only chance to enter the Notre Dame du Starlight. After teleporting the group of disappointed students out, Rosalina quietly looked at the excited faces below. Congratulations on successfully passing the Notre Dame du Starlight's assessment. In the future, you will be studying all kinds of magic and martial arts in the Sacred Institute for a long time. Students who can enter the Notre Dame du Starlight are all outstanding talents or lucky ones. I hope that you won't become arrogant after entering the academy. The Notre Dame du Starlight has never lacked heavenly treasures. If you start to feel relaxed after entering the Notre Dame du Starlight, then you will gradually be unable to keep up with everyone else's progress and will be eliminated by the academy in the end. I forgot to tell you that entering the Notre Dame du Starlight doesn't mean that you will always be a student of the Sacred Institute. The academy will have 2 assessments every year. If you fail one of the 2 assessments, you will have a chance to make up for it. If you fail both times, you will repeat a year. If you repeat 2 years in a row, then you will be expelled by the academy. The Notre Dame du Starlight has a record of expelling students. If you don't want to be the one to be expelled, then work hard. The numerous examinees who had been extremely excited a moment ago, upon hearing that even if they entered the Sacred Academy, they could still be persuaded to withdraw, although they were still excited in their hearts, their feverish heads had calmed down. All of them straightened their expressions, no longer beaming with joy. Seeing the reactions of the freshmen, the 3 teachers nodded secretly. Then a large screen suddenly fell from the sky next to Rosalina and the other 2 teachers. The screen was still black and there was nothing on it. The freshmen were all curious. They didn't understand why the 3 teachers had made this thing. You should know that your score in this assessment is judged by the level of the items you have obtained. This is the score list. See the platform below the score list? Put the items you have found on the platform one by one. Then, put the hand you have stamped on the other side of the platform. This way, the score list will know your information and automatically send your score to the academy. Hearing that they could actually use this kind of test to grade, all of the freshmen were extremely surprised. Very quickly, the first girl handed over the low-level magic book she had found onto the platform, and then placed her hand on the other side of the platform. Soon, a line of clear words began to appear on the originally black screen. Name: XXXX, Strength, XXX, Item obtained, Low-level magic book, Overall score, 70. The girl standing in front of the screen was a little disappointed when she saw that her score was only 70 points. The magic book she had handed in disappeared from the platform after a flash of light. Everything in this world was not real. Of course, it was impossible to bring it to the outside world. In this world, powerful magic swords could only be used in this virtual space. Magic battle skills and the like could naturally be memorized and taken away. When you first entered this world, it was said that you could take away whatever you found. This was not wrong. The academy allowed you to take away the things inside, but whether you could take them out depended on your own ability. Chapter 44. If they really thought that this magic book could be brought to the real world, then they could only cry themselves to death. Fortunately, there were many smart people in this world. After obtaining a magic book or a sword skill, many people would immediately memorize the contents of the book in their minds. Only by memorizing things in one's mind was the safest. Although the girl who went up for the first time was stunned when she saw the magic book disappear, because she had already memorized it, she didn't care very much. After frowning, she moved to the other side and let the people who hadn't scored yet come up to score. The remaining freshmen went up one by one to be evaluated. Fengwu's position was in the middle. This was also because she stood in a good position and didn't get squeezed to the back. Because Fengwu handed in a magic sword, an intermediate magic sword score wouldn't be very high. Moreover, Fengwu's strength was very good. So her overall score reached a high score of 85 points. This kind of score was already very good at the current stage because until now, there hadn't been a freshman who scored more than 90 points. In this position of 85 points, she was already in the top 10. Naturally, she attracted some people's attention. Of course, this was only the first half of the people who were evaluated. Among the people who were waiting for their scores, it was very likely that there would be heaven treasures who scored more than 90 points. There was no doubt about this. After Fengwu finished evaluating the score, she stood to the side and watched the people behind her go up one by one to wait for their scores on the ranking board. After Fengwu, many people passed by before it was finally Irene's turn. As a transmigrator, her luck might not be as good as the female lead of this world, Zicheng, but it was definitely not bad. Because she found an advanced magic book, Irene's score was as high as 95 points, which was the highest score so far. Even the three teachers looked at her with a lot of kindness. Because Irene got the highest score so far, naturally many people looked at her with envy and jealousy. Irene just pretended not to see it. She knew that her score couldn't be the highest. The female lead, Zicheng, was someone who obtained a holy level magic book. Perhaps the female lead was always the last to appear, so the female lead Zicheng and the supporting female lead Eve were naturally the last to appear. Eve happened to be standing in front of Zicheng. After the scoring, Eve's score reached 85, which was the same as Fengwu's. Although this score was not bad, it was not outstanding after several heaven treasures who scored more than 90 points. Eve didn't say anything. She just snorted and stood aside, allowing Zicheng to step forward and wait for the final evaluation. When Zicheng placed the saint-level magic book on the table, even the three teachers were shocked. They didn't think that there would be such a lucky kid among the candidates this year. Zicheng's strength was already pretty good, and with the addition of the fact that he had found the holy level magic book, his score was as high as 98 points. Even though the score had not reached 100 after 95 points, it was not easy to increase 1 point. To be able to reach 98 points, one could already be considered a genius among geniuses. Oh my god! I thought that the boy who scored 96 points was already good enough. I didn't expect there to be someone even better. Why didn't I find the saint-level magic book? Why didn't I find an advanced magic book? There are so few who scored more than 90 points. There are only 10 in total. The Ministry of Magic and the Swordmaster Department each have 5, but the one with the highest score is still our Ministry of Magic. Although they were envious of others who scored higher than them, they still had a sense of collective honor. The Ministry of Magic and the Swordmaster Department had a certain competitive relationship. Every year, the Ministry of Magic or the Swordmaster Department would bet on who scored the highest. The school generally didn't care about this kind of behavior, as long as it didn't affect their daily practice. When everyone's results were out, the three teachers told them that school would start in 3 days, and they had to remember not to be late. After that, Fengwu only felt her vision go black. When she opened her eyes again, she was still sleeping on the bed that Tianyu and Ai had arranged for her. If it weren't for Xiaochun and her dantian and the god-level sword technique in her mind, she would really think that it was a dream. After changing her clothes and going downstairs, Fengwu felt very hungry. Your assessment is over. I thought it would take a few more days. A juror was sitting at the dining table, eating the steak that he had just made. When he saw Fengwu coming downstairs, he raised his eyebrows in surprise. Tank was more concerned about Fengwu's results. When he saw Fengwu coming downstairs, he immediately ran over and asked, "How did you do? Did you pass, Fengwu?" "And I passed." She nodded. Looking at the delicious lunch in front of a juror, she was even hungrier. It was already lunchtime. She had stayed in the virtual space for more than a month, but in reality, she had only slept for a few days outside. During these few days, she had been receiving medicine from the Holy Court to maintain her body's nutritional needs. Otherwise, how could a normal person wake up without eating or drinking for a few days and nights? She would have starved to death long ago. Fengwu, did the second round of the assessment take place in a dream? I heard from Big Brother Ajur that it was very magical. Can you tell me about it? Tank excitedly carried Fengwu's baby, Fengwu, and sat down beside Fengwu. At this time, Fengye also saw his little mother that he hadn't seen for a few days. He babbled and asked for a hug. Fengye wasn't happy that he hadn't seen his little mother for a few days. Fengwu carried Fengye over and kissed his tender little face. His white hair made him look like an old man, but he looked very cute on Fengye. Save it. Don't you know that the contents of the second and third round of the entrance exam of the Notre Dame du Starlight are confidential? If Fengwu tells you, she will be blacklisted by the Holy Court. Ajur picked up a glass of milk and took a big gulp. Tank's excited little face fell. Although he was really curious about the entrance exam of the Notre Dame du Starlight, he couldn't harm his good friend. Although Fengwu was a little stupid, she was a good person. What a pity. He sighed in disappointment and didn't continue to pester him. Auntie knows that you will wake up today. She said that she will prepare a big meal for you. There will be good food to eat tonight. Tank's eyes lit up when he thought of the delicious food. Fengwu was the same. She had been eating buns in the virtual world for a month. No matter how delicious the buns were, Fengwu still wanted to change her taste. If it wasn't for the fact that she didn't have enough money to spend in that space, Fengwu wouldn't have to buy buns every day. Xiaowu, we will be in the same school in the future. You will also live on campus, right? It's best to buy some daily necessities in the next few days. Although the villa provided by the school is good, you still need to buy daily necessities. And the little guy in your arms, it's best to buy a magical beast that can take care of the child. A holy mother is good. Many nobles would choose a holy mother to protect and take care of their children. If they used a human nanny, they would be worried that the nanny was sent by the enemy. Chapter 45. The Holy Mother Beast is famous for being fond of children. Although it is only a Tier 5 magical beast, its defense is amazing. It is the best magical beast for children. Ajur knew that Fengwu's brain couldn't think too much, so he did everything he could to help her. Although Tianyu's family was not bad, there were some things that he shouldn't trouble them too much. Even if he told Fengwu these things, she wouldn't understand. It was better to just tell her what to do and save time. Ajur knew Fengwu very well. Fengwu wasn't a girl who understood the ways of the world. Before she crossed over to this world, no one taught her these things on Mount Yuehua. Her master was also a pure and simple person. Naturally, it was impossible for her to teach her these things. This also caused Fengwu's personality to be not very good at socializing. Ajur thought that since he was Fengwu's friend, he should help her. With his personality, he immediately took action. He pulled Fengwu, who had just finished eating, out of the door. Today was the end of the Notre Dame du Starlight's entrance examination. Recently, many parents brought their children to the Notre Dame du Starlight to take the entrance examination. Naturally, there was a lot of traffic in the city. Ajur had been walking around the central city for the past few days. He had already familiarized himself with the nearby shops. He walked through the noisy streets. He directly brought Fengwu to a shop that specialized in magical beasts. This shop was very old. It was said that it had a complete variety of magical beasts. They even sold dragon eggs. However, dragons were something that ordinary people couldn't afford to buy, even if they could afford to buy them. Therefore, although the shop had dragon eggs, they were at most for decorative purposes. No one would buy them. Dear customers, please come in. I am the owner of this shop. May I know who is looking for a magical beast and what type? I can recommend it to you. A man who looked to be in his 30s walked over with a professional smile. She's the one who wants to buy it. Pick a holy mother beast for her to take care of her child. Ajur pointed at Fengwu and said carelessly, so that's how it is. Our store happens to have a batch of newly hatched holy mother beasts. Although they are still in their infancy stage, they grow very quickly. It is very beneficial for the children to grow up together with these young holy mother beasts. The owner said with a smile, take us there. Ajur didn't say that he would buy it immediately. He winked at the shop owner and asked him to show them the magic beasts first. Although the holy mother beast was the best babysitting beast, the holy mother beast wasn't willing to take care of just any child. It also depended on the fate of the two parties. He asked the shop owner to take them to see the Holy Mother Beast. In fact, he wanted to see if he could find a Holy Mother Beast that could get along well with Fengyi. Fengwu and Tank naturally followed the shop owner and Ajur to see the Holy Mother Beast that Ajur was talking about. The shop owner took Fengwu and the others to a room. When they opened the door, they saw a medium-sized cage with 3 basketball-sized Holy Mother Beasts. These Holy Mother Beasts were white all over. Their eyes were the size of walnuts, their bodies were oval, and their hands and feet weren't long. In the middle of their stomachs there was a pouch like a kangaroo. This pouch was specially used to hold children. Legend has it that the pouch of a Holy Mother Beast was the best nursery for a child. When a child slept inside, not only would it nourish the body, it would also make the child immune to all kinds of diseases. It was very magical. When the 3 Holy Mother Beasts heard that someone had come, they all blinked their big eyes and looked over. The 3 Holy Mother Beasts already had some intelligence. They seemed to know that a friend might be leaving this place today. The Holy Mother Beast was a kind of magical beast with a very soft heart. When they thought of leaving a friend, they naturally wouldn't be willing. But when Fengwu approached with Little Bun, one of the 3 Holy Mother Beasts suddenly became very excited. She began to wave at Little Yi, who was in Fengwu's arms. Ajur raised an eyebrow at the sight of the Holy Mother Beast. He pointed at it and said, "That's it. How much is it?" The Holy Mother Beast's price is 50,000 gold coins. The shop owner smiled even more happily. After all, Ajur didn't look like he was lacking in money. Card. Ajur flipped his hand, and a black crystal card appeared in his hand. This time the owner's smile became more respectful. Those who could take out a black crystal card weren't ordinary people. This young man in front of him must be a noble with power and influence. Ajur immediately took out 50,000 gold coins. Tank felt that his little heart was about to explode. 50,000 gold coins. It wasn't 5, it wasn't 5, it wasn't 5, it wasn't 5, it was 50,000 gold coins. Thinking that there was someone who could casually take out 50,000 gold coins, he felt that it was inconceivable. So expensive. Fengwu frowned. That's enough to buy a lot of food. I'm giving it to you. Don't think about returning it to me. We are friends. This young master doesn't lack this little bit of money. Okay. Fengwu nodded obediently. Ajur suspected that this little girl didn't even know that there was a word in this world called borrowing. He didn't want to teach Fengwu these things. Fengwu didn't need to know too much. It wasn't like he didn't have poor friends in the past. At that time, his generosity was seen as looking down on him. Ajur didn't want Fengwu to treat him like that, so he didn't want to teach Fengwu these things at all. After buying the Holy Mother Beast, Ajur immediately made the Holy Mother Beast recognize Fengyi as its master. From then on, the Holy Mother Beast would be Fengyi's nanny beast. It could hide in Fengyi's Warcraft space at any time and take care of Fengyi. As long as he bought some magic cores for the little guy to absorb, it would be very easy for it to grow up. At this time, the little Holy Mother Beast had already entered Fengyi's Warcraft space. Fengwu and Tank were still in the shop looking at the magic beast eggs and magic beasts for sale from time to time. Since they had just made a big deal, the shop owner didn't mind them strolling around the shop. Most importantly, the person who paid the bill had a black crystal card. If he liked a magic beast in the shop, it couldn't be better. Because of this, he was very happy to let Fengwu and the others stay. Wow, big brother Ajur, look, there is a giant dragon for sale here. It's a dragon. In the hearts of ordinary people, dragons were definitely mysterious and powerful. Tank didn't expect to see a dragon egg for sale in the shop. TSK, don't make a fuss about nothing. Dragons are indeed very powerful, but that doesn't mean that their eggs are difficult to obtain. Dragons are creatures that only care about their reproduction, not their rearing. They go into heat wherever they go, and usually find a hidden place to lay their eggs. They don't care if they can hatch or not. Chapter 46. Due to the Dragon Clan's practice of not caring about raising the eggs, most of the dragon eggs would eventually become dead eggs. As for humans, if they found unhatched dragon eggs, they would also bring them back to the human world to sell. However, these dragon eggs were not easy to hatch. Many people who buy dragon eggs end up going bankrupt and never see the dragon hatch. Even if it hatches, ordinary people can't afford to raise it. A dragon's appetite is amazing. It's not easy to raise a dragon. Only those rich but ignorant fellows would want to buy some dragon eggs to hatch. Brother Ajur, is it really okay for you to say this in someone's shop? While Tank was disappointed in Long Fong, he also noticed that the shop owner was about to lose his smile. The three of them finally left the magical beast shop under the shop owner's uncontrollable smile. It was not easy for the shop owner to do business. The dragon egg was originally placed there to deceive rich fools. Their behavior of exposing the truth of the dragon egg was naturally not welcomed by the shop owner. After leaving the magical beast shop, Ajur took Fengwu to buy some new daily necessities. He also bought some new clothes for Fengwu, Tank, and Little Bun. Ajur did not know what was going on, but he had a strong desire to spend money today. After buying everything they needed, Fengwu and the others returned to Tianyu's house. At night, Tianyu prepared a big meal to celebrate Fengwu's passing of the Notre Dame du Starlight entrance exam. 3 days passed in a flash. Soon it was the day of admission. He put Little Bun into the space ring and took him to go through the admission procedures. Because the Notre Dame du Starlight would arrange a dormitory for every student, regardless of whether you lived there or not, there were many people living in the school. Only some children whose families were in the central city did not live in the school. Freshmen of the Mage Department report here. Swordsman Department this way. Pharmacist Department look here. Don't go the wrong way. Music Department report here. Alchemy Department, come over here and report in quickly. Inside the campus, many senior students were holding up signs and shouting. The front gate of Notre Dame du Starlight was as lively as a market. Fengwu and Ajur were not from the same department. Ajur was from the Mage Department while Fengwu was from the Swordmaster Department. The two of them had to queue up separately after entering the school. The Swordmaster Department and the Law Department were the two departments with the largest number of students in the entire academy. Of course, there would be more than 1 or 2 seniors and teachers handling the registration procedures. There were 5 or 6 tables, and there was a long line in front of each table. Fengwu obediently chose a line and lined up. What's his name? Xiong-yi. Give me your hand. A fat hand was placed on a crystal board, following which, the crystal board displayed the words identity confirmed. Below it was Xiong-1's results, class and dormitory. Very quickly, one person finished the registration procedures and then the next. When it was Fengwu's turn, she pressed her hand on the crystal board, and all the information was displayed. After receiving the dormitory key and uniform, as well as the emblem of the Holy Court, her registration procedures were completed. Fengwu placed the uniform and other things into her space ring. Then, she followed the directions given by the senior at the registration area to find the dormitory she would be living in for the next few years. The conditions of the Notre Dame du Starlight dormitory were very good. Every 4 students were arranged in a row to live in a small villa. The living facilities in the villa were complete, and the house was exquisitely decorated. After all, those who were able to study at the Notre Dame du Starlight were all geniuses. In terms of living conditions, they naturally had to provide better living conditions. Every villa had a number. Fengwu's dormitory was number 302. She took the key, opened the door and directly entered the house. The house was very quiet. It seemed that the other students had not arrived yet. Fengwu blinked and directly went up to the second floor. There were 4 rooms on the second floor. There was a nameplate on the door of each room. It seemed that the rooms had already been allocated. Naturally, she had already received the room key at the registration area. Using the key to open the door to her room, Fengwu entered the room. The room was very big, and there was a large balcony. There was also a separate bathroom and a walk-in room. Fengwu took out some clothes from the space ring and hung them in the walk-in room. She also hung the school uniform in the walk-in room. She also hung the new quilt that she had bought and placed the crib in the room. This crib was newly bought by Fengwu 2 days ago. Because the school could not prepare a crib for Fengwu, Ajur dragged Fengwu out to buy a beautiful one. The crib that Ajur bought had insect repellent and some defensive properties. The price of the crib was not cheap. Fengwu had no objection to Ajur spending money to buy things for her. Although Tank felt that it was not good to let Ajur spend money, Fengwu did not understand why. This girl really did not know the ways of the world. This made Tank very worried that one day, Ajur and Fengwu would not be friends. What would he do if Fengwu returned the money? Fengwu bought a lot of things these 2 days. They were all brought by a Zhi, Tianyue and his wife. Fengwu did not know much about what to buy. Fortunately, she still had the ability to take care of herself. Otherwise, who would be assured to let her live outside alone? In fact, Fengwu was not as naive as they thought. Before transmigrating, although it was Fengwu's master who brought her down the mountain to buy things, when they were on the mountain, other than cooking, Fengwu also did a lot of other things including cleaning and washing. After tidying up her room, Fengwu released Little Bun from the interspatial ring. Fengwu's interspatial ring could store life, but Little Bun did not like to stay inside. Little Bun would be afraid in dark places. This time, because of the registration, Fengwu had to put Little Bun in the interspatial ring. Fortunately, the Holy Mother Beast that she bought 2 days ago had grown up. This Holy Mother Beast only needed enough magical beast cores for it to absorb. It grew very quickly. In just 2 days, the little Holy Mother Beast had grown several times. 3 days ago it was only the size of a basketball. 3 days later, it was already as tall as Fengwu's waist. This Holy Mother Beast had already recognized Little Bun as its master. Little Bun was now under the care of the Holy Mother Beast. The little nanny Tank finally retired. Because she no longer had to take care of the child, Tank was so happy that she bought a big box of candies for a Zhi to eat. A Zhi ate 2 candies as a gesture, and then gave the whole box to Fengwu. The baby was hungry. Little Bun's black grape-like eyes stared at the Holy Mother Beast that Fengwu named Little White. Because of the relationship, the Holy Mother Beast could easily know what Little Bun was thinking. When Little Bun said that he was hungry, she had already come out with the milk bottle. The milk bottle had always been in the bag on Holy Mother Beast's stomach. Chapter 47. Other than being used to coax the baby to sleep, it was also a space pocket that could store many things. Now that Fengwu's milk bottle and diapers had been moved to Little White's space pocket, Fengwu's space ring only needed to store her own things. Fengwu felt hungry after Fengye finished drinking milk. Fortunately, she had stored many delicious foods in her space ring these 2 days. She casually took out a drumstick and started eating. The sunlight shone in from the window, filling the room with the aroma of drumstick. Fengwu leisurely ate the drumstick in the room while Little White was feeding Fengye. The atmosphere in the room was warm and peaceful. In this peaceful moment, there was a series of rhythmic knocks on the door. Fengwu grabbed the drumstick and went to open the door. When she opened the door, the milk-haired girl Annika, who was smiling sweetly, saw Fengwu holding a drumstick and her smile froze. Then her smile blossomed again. "Hello, you must be Fengwu. I'm Annika, a new student like you. I'm from the mage department. What about you?" Annika was a very beautiful girl. She had milk-colored hair, eyes of the same color, snow-white skin, a height of 170 centimeters, and a devilish figure. It was just that her breasts weren't very plump. She was a flat-chested beauty just like Fengwu. Annika looked at her roommate and found that this girl's breasts were the same as hers. This made her have a better impression of Fengwu. Because of Annika's figure, she was often disliked by her sisters. Now that she finally saw a flat-chested girl like her, she naturally wanted to befriend her. "I'm Fengwu from the Swordmaster department." Fengwu remembered Tank saying that after other people introduced themselves, she should also introduce herself. It was polite. "Our roommates in the same dormitory are all here. Why don't we go out and have a good meal together? I heard that the canteen of the Saint Academy is very good. We can try it together." Annika didn't mind Fengwu's cold attitude. Although they didn't talk much, she could tell from Fengwu's clear eyes that she was a very simple girl. Therefore, Annika didn't dislike Fengwu. Fengwu blinked and finally nodded. "Xiaobai, take good care of the baby." Fengwu turned around and called out to Little White. Little White waved its hand in a very human-like manner, indicating that it heard her and would take good care of its little master. Annika stared at the baby, who was as cute as an angel on the bed. Because she was talking to Fengwu just now, she didn't notice the situation in Fengwu's room until Fengwu turned around to talk to her. "Why is there a baby here?" Annika exclaimed. She really couldn't believe that someone would raise a child in the dormitory. Most people raised pets, right? Even animals weren't allowed in the dormitory. No one dared to raise a child in the dormitory. This is my baby. Fengwu tilted her head calmly. She didn't understand why these people had such strange expressions when they saw Xiaoyi. Xiaoyi was clearly very cute. Annika was shocked. Could it be that it was what she understood? Or was there something wrong with her understanding? You adopted him? Yes, that must be it. Fengwu must have picked up a child out of kindness to raise. But reality told her that she was thinking too much. My baby. Fengwu bit her lip and said seriously, why are all these people saying that Xiaoyi isn't my baby? He is. So she gave birth to him? Annika felt that she was dreaming. This little girl who looked even younger than her had already given birth to a child and was a mother. Only after Fengwu left the room and closed the door behind her did the dumbfounded Annika snap out of her daze. Annika was curious as to why Fengwu had a child at such a young age. Who was the father of the child? She had a lot of questions, but she wasn't familiar with Fengwu, so it wasn't appropriate for her to ask too many questions. She could only wait until they were more familiar with each other to understand more. Fengwu came to the living room on the first floor. There were two women sitting on the spacious and comfortable sofa. Both of them were great beauties with hot figures. One of them was wearing a swordswoman's outfit and had her hair tied up in a ponytail. The other had a head of mesmerizing aqua blue hair and looked gentle and charming. Fengwu, we're really fated to be assigned to the same dormitory. Silda didn't expect to see Fengwu again. Although they had walked out of the small forest and entered the neutral city together in the virtual world, they hadn't met again. However, Fengwu's personality left a deep impression on Silda. Although Silda and Fengwu weren't close friends, they were much closer than the other two. Therefore, Silda was quite happy to see Fengwu. On the other hand, the blue-haired woman frowned slightly, but she didn't say anything. She seemed to be very calm. Silda, do you know Fengwu? Annika was still thinking about Fengwu's child. When she realized that Fengwu and Silda knew each other, she asked, we know each other. During the virtual world assessment, we formed a team and went to the neutral city together. I didn't expect to have Fengwu as my roommate, Silda said with a smile. You two are really fated. By the way, Rika, you don't know Fengwu yet, right? She's also from the swordsman department like Silda. She's our roommate, Annika winked playfully. Rika smiled gently. Hello, Fengwu. Nice to meet you. Hello, Fengwu didn't smile. She pursed her lips and replied faintly. Rika wasn't happy with Annika's cold response. However, she didn't say anything. Perhaps it was her first day of registration, and she didn't want any rumors to spread. Alright, since everyone knows each other, let's go eat. I'm hungry. Annika rubbed her stomach cutely as if her stomach was really growling. Silda patted her shoulder. Alright, let's go. I've heard that the food in Notre Dame du Starlight's restaurant isn't bad and the prices aren't expensive. You can try it later. The four girls locked the door and headed for the dining hall. Along the way, Anika spoke from time to time. Rika and Silda naturally chatted with her. Although they didn't ignore Fengwu, they also realized that Fengwu didn't like chatting that much. They didn't deliberately drag her into a conversation. Fengwu, of course, didn't care if anyone chatted with her. She and Ajur had agreed to meet at the restaurant. She just didn't know if Ajur had arrived yet. The dormitory wasn't far from the restaurant. The restaurant had 3 floors. The first floor was for year 123, the second floor was for year 4567, and the last floor was for year 10 students. On the third floor, one could enjoy the best delicacies at the same price as the first and second floors. The year 1 champion also had the privilege to eat and drink. Chapter 48. After paying, Fengwu and Zilda lined up to receive their meals. The meals in the cafeteria were also divided into 3 levels. A, B, C, and C. Meal A was naturally the best. There were meat, vegetables, soup, and fruits, and it was very sumptuous. However, one serving of Meal A cost 2 silver coins. Although it was already very cheap for well-off families, it was too expensive for commoners to eat Meal A at 2 silver coins. Meal B costs 1 silver coin. The amount and quality of the meat in Meal B couldn't be compared to Meal A. Although the quality was lower, there was still a lot to eat. There was also the most popular Meal C, which cost 20 copper coins per serving. Compared to Meal A and Meal B, it was very cheap. Those who ordered Meal C were those from poor families. Notre Dame du Starlight had always paid attention to the quality of its students. For those from poor families, they could receive a living allowance of 2 gold coins per month. Of course, if they didn't want to eat in the cafeteria, they could also buy their own food and cook in the dormitory. The school only provided lunch and dinner, but not breakfast. If they wanted to eat breakfast, they could buy it at the school gate. Outside of Notre Dame du Starlight, there were many restaurants and breakfast restaurants. These people opened their shops here to do business with the students. The meals on the first and second floors were refreshed every day, but the set meals were the same for everyone. Only the third floor used the buffet model. Today was the first time that Dorm 302 had a meal together. Although they were eating in the student cafeteria, everyone still needed to have a serving of meal A. Of the 4 girls in the dormitory, only Fengwu wasn't considered a noble. Originally, Fengwu was also a noble, but because of the matter of her giving birth to a child out of wedlock, she had been driven out of her family. Now, her name might not even be on the family tree. After the 4 of them lined up to receive their meals, they casually found an empty table and sat down. Right now, most of the people in the cafeteria were seniors. Fengwu and the others hadn't changed into their school uniforms yet, so they were quite conspicuous on the first floor. Of course, there were many other freshmen who hadn't changed into their school uniforms yet. Although they were quite conspicuous without their uniforms, they didn't attract too much attention. Did you hear? Freshmen have to earn their own living expenses for a year. The school will only give us 2 gold coins per month. We also have to find jobs in the city and then have the boss of the restaurant we work for give us a grade. If our grades are too low, we will have to continue working for the second year. I really don't understand why the Sacred Academy arranged this. We are here to study, not to find a job. Annika cut a small piece of steak. She felt terrible when she thought of the hard work for the next year. I heard about it too. I heard that it's a tradition. Every year's freshmen go through this. However, we don't have to work for a year. As long as we can earn a year's worth of living expenses, we don't have to work for the rest of the year. All we have to do is to attend classes. She was a swordsman, so she could register in the Swordsman Association, and then accept missions to earn gold coins. Unlike mages whose strength was generally lower in the early stages, it would be more difficult for mages to earn money by themselves if they wanted to do so. It's just a year's worth of living expenses. We can earn it very quickly. Rika smiled nonchalantly. She didn't care about that year's worth of living expenses at all. The 3 girls couldn't be blamed for thinking that it was easy to earn money. They were all noble girls and usually had a lot of pocket money. Usually they just needed to ask for it from their families. As the spoiled children of their families, sometimes they didn't even need to ask for it. The elders in their families would take the initiative to give it to them. This was why these girls didn't know how hard it was to earn money. Fengwu didn't like to talk while eating. She was busy stuffing food into her mouth. She ate very quickly, which naturally attracted the attention of the other 3. But Silda didn't think much of it. Swordsmen had always been straightforward and didn't pay much attention to these things. Annika had already seen Fengwu eat a drumstick, so she didn't care about how fast she ate. Only Rika lowered her head slightly to hide the contempt in her eyes. These commoners were really uneducated. Although she didn't like Fengwu's vulgar behavior, she didn't want to be too unfriendly since they had just met. So she didn't argue with Fengwu. Living with a commoner really made her uncomfortable. Thinking of this, an idea flashed through Rika's mind. But now wasn't the time to implement it. Fengwu, you eat so quickly. Silda looked at the empty plate in front of Fengwu with interest. He really didn't know how such a small stomach could eat so much. Yes, I'm hungry. Fengwu pursed her lips and opened her big black eyes. Her voice sounded silly and cute. Just as Annika was about to say something, someone walked over to them with a large plate of food. The person walked over and sat down. Rika was a little unhappy. There was clearly an empty seat. Why did this person have to sit with them? Although she wasn't too happy, Rika didn't choose to quarrel with the person who had just sat down in order to maintain her image. Being a magician was a noble and elegant profession. She couldn't let these rude and unmannered people take over. Xiaowu, I've been looking for you for a long time. You're too slow. Ajur didn't care if there was anyone nearby. He was only here to look for Fengwu. The others had nothing to do with him. Fengwu was in a good mood when she saw Ajur. Her big eyes narrowed happily, and the corner of her mouth turned up in a faint smile. There were 4 of them at the table. Annika and Rika sat together, while Silda and Fengwu sat together. Ajur naturally sat beside Fengwu since he was here to look for Fengwu. I didn't see you. A trace of grievance flashed through the girl's eyes. She looked like a cute little bunny. Ajur's hand itched to ruffle the girl's smooth black hair. It felt good to the touch, just like his cousin's silver Gila. He stroked it a few more times before stopping. This is the food I brought down from the 3rd floor. I'll give you half. You have such a big appetite. How can you be full in one meal? He generously gave half of his food to Fengwu. Although he didn't want to admit it, Fengwu really did have a big appetite. As a man, it wasn't good to be compared to a girl in terms of food. You can go up to the 3rd floor? Are you a senior in the upper grade? Annika had thought that this boy was also a freshman and was Fengwu's friend. She didn't expect him to be able to go up to the 3rd floor. That meant that he couldn't be a freshman. He could only be in the top 10 of the 2nd to 7th grades. Because the top 10 of the 1st grade hadn't been determined yet, no 1st grade students would go up to the 3rd floor to eat. Chapter 49. Rika, who hadn't thought much of it at first, suddenly realized something when she heard the words 3rd floor. Her eyes, which were originally not intending to look at the 3rd floor, subtly moved over. Next to Fengwu sat a young man in a fiery red magician's robe. The young man's facial features were exquisite and beautiful. His fiery red short hair seemed to have a life of its own, and his red eyes seemed to contain a powerful life force. Anyone who looked at him would feel that he was extraordinary. Ajur didn't really want to talk to anyone other than Fengwu, but when he thought about how Fengwu would be living with these girls in the future, he decided to lower his status for once for Fengwu's sake and talk to these girls. Like you, I'm also a freshman, Ajur said with a raised eyebrow. Then how did you get up to the 3rd floor? Even Silda was curious. I defeated the 2nd year's first seat and proved my strength. From today onwards, I'm automatically the 1st year's first seat. Naturally, I can eat as much as I want on the 3rd floor. He nonchalantly picked up a large piece of barbecued meat. The food on the 3rd floor was indeed delicious. If it weren't for the fact that he wanted Fengwu to eat her fill, he wouldn't have bothered to fight for first seat. It was so troublesome. Wow, you're amazing. Annika and Silda cried out in surprise. Even Rika's eyes flashed with an unknown emotion. It's all right. Ajur had never known the meaning of modesty. He dared to accept anyone's praise. Oh right. You still don't know our names. We're Fengwu's roommates. This is Silda, this is Rika, and I'm Annika. What's your name? Annika was a talkative girl. She felt that Fengwu's friend was very interesting. I'm Ajur. Are you a magician or a swordsman? Silda asked. Of course it's the mage element. Ajur's expression changed as he thought of something. Thinking of the few guys who usually didn't get along with him, he didn't know if they were here yet. If it wasn't for the fact that he had to go to Notre Dame du Starlight to learn how to control his power, he didn't want to come here and have any interaction with those guys. You're a mage, so are Rika and I. Maybe we'll be in the same class. Annie was very happy to know such a strong person. She thought about how she would be able to tell the people next to her that she knew this New Year's teacher. She would be able to gain a lot of face then. You're right. We'll all be in the same faction in the future, so please take care of me. Rika smiled, and her smile was filled with the confidence of a noble girl. Ajur didn't have any feelings towards Fengwu's roommates. As long as they didn't harm Fengwu, everything else was fine. If we're really in the same class, I'll definitely take care of you. Who would want to be in the same class as you? From the moment he entered the school, he was destined to not be in the normal class. Those who could be in the same class as him were the top 30 freshmen. Fengwu's 2 roommates were obviously not in this list. Ajur had never liked women. Although he was a little more amiable to these girls for Fengwu's sake, it couldn't hide the fact that he didn't like women. If he were to be in the same class as them, he would be annoyed to death. Fengwu didn't say anything. She was eating the food Ajur gave her. The food on the 3rd floor tasted much better than the 1st floor. Moreover, it was rich in manna. Fengwu was very satisfied with the food on the 3rd floor. After eating, Ajur didn't stay with Fengwu. After bidding farewell to Fengwu, he returned to his dorm alone. Fengwu and the others naturally returned to room 302 together. After a morning of registration, there was a welcoming party in the afternoon. It was an event organized by the school to welcome the freshmen. The welcoming party didn't have any meaning. It was mainly a speech by the school's leaders. Then, the senior representative would come out to welcome the juniors. Then, the freshman representative would give a speech. This freshman representative, needless to say, was definitely Zicheng, who got the holy magic book and entered the school first. After attending the welcoming party, Fengwu's new life could be considered to have begun. She kissed her baby and fell asleep sweetly. Classes would start tomorrow. The night passed. Facing the morning sun, Fengwu woke up to little Baozi crying. Not long after little Baozi started crying, he was held in little White's arms. Little White skillfully changed little Baozi's diaper, and then fed him milk. Little White always seemed to have an inexhaustible supply of spiritual milk. Little Baozi liked to drink it very much. Because little Baozi found his favorite source of milk, Fengwu finally didn't have to feed little Baozi milk anymore. After getting up and washing up, she changed into the school uniform. She combed her hair and let it down to her waist. Then she put on a beautiful pink crystal hair clip. A cute little black-haired loli appeared in the mirror. Finally, she put on the school emblem and finally took care of herself. The school didn't provide breakfast, so little White had already made a delicious breakfast in the kitchen before Fengwu woke up. There was meat porridge, omelets, fried noodles, and youqiao. There was also spiritual milk that she didn't know where it came from. She didn't know if it was the same as what little Baozi drank. Fengwu tidied herself up and made the bed. Then she brought little White and little Baozi downstairs to eat breakfast. There was no one downstairs, probably because no one had woken up yet. Fengwu had a habit of waking up early when she was at Mount Yuehua. In addition, little Baozi needed to drink milk every morning, so he would naturally wake up when it was time. After going downstairs, she casually pulled out a chair and sat at the dining table. Little White diligently helped Fengwu fill a big bowl with porridge. Then he carried little Baozi and sat on the sofa to play with him. Fengwu was very satisfied with little White. Not only did he know how to take care of children, he also knew how to cook. He was as good as Auntie Lian. Because of little White's ability, Fengwu liked little White more and more. Waking up so early in the morning, I feel like I didn't sleep for long. She yawned and casually went downstairs with a long sword. She was wearing the same school uniform as Fengwu. Her hair was tied up in a ponytail and she looked like she just woke up. Wow, it smells so good. Did someone wake up to make breakfast? Anika had also just woken up, but she looked much more energetic than Silda. Her hair was tied up in a long braid and draped over her back. The last one to come out of the room was Rika. Because everyone had classes around the same time, other than Fengwu, who had a habit of waking up early, everyone else woke up around the same time. Fengwu, did you make this? Rika didn't find it strange. In her eyes, commoners all had these skills. If she could make breakfast in the future, it wouldn't be unacceptable for her to stay in this dormitory. Little White made it, Fengwu said as she ate the porridge in her bowl and looked at the three people coming downstairs. Who's Little White? Anika asked curiously. She didn't remember anyone called Little White living here. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.